Subcommittee on Water Resources and Environment will come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chairman be authorized to declare a recess at any time during today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that members not on the subcommittee be permitted to sit with the subcommittee at today's hearing and ask questions. Without objection, so ordered. As a reminder, if members wish to insert a document into the record, please also email it to documentsti@mail.house.gov. I now recognize myself for the purpose of an opening statement for 5 minutes. I'd like to thank Assistant Secretary Telle and General Graham for joining us today as we review the core performance and implementation of recent Water Resources and Development Acts. I want to give special congratulations to you, Assistant Secretary Telle, on your confirmation by the Senate by an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote just over a month ago. Based on the conversations we've had, I'm confident that you will provide much-needed leadership to the Army Corps of Engineers. I look forward to working with you to ensure the Corps fulfills its critical missions. I know that you both share the same goal as I do, to make the Corps act faster, more efficiently, and more economically. Unfortunately, Corps project delivery often falls short of where it should be. I have a background in the trucking business where delivering on time is what keeps our doors open. And my goal as chairman of the subcommittee is to get the Corps to complete its projects on time, under budget, and correctly. I understand some of the budgetary problems that the Corps faces, but these are not excuses for study delays, year-long dredging backlogs, and mismanagement of repairs to vital locks and dams on our inland waterway system. Earlier this year, I was able to visit Wilson and Chickamauga locks in Alabama and Tennessee, which are crucial assets that serve America's economic and national security by ensuring 2 of our nation's largest rivers are navigable to the Gulf of America. These locks and dams are a testament to the Corps' legacy of building America, but like so many other inland waterway projects, they are past their prime. So rehabilitating and replacing them is taking too long and costing taxpayers far more than it should. We have a responsibility to invest and manage America's hard-earned tax dollars wisely and efficiently. While these projects are expensive, the Corps can and must do better. I am hopeful that Section 1126 of the Water 2024, which changed the cost share of these projects required to come from the Inland Waterway Trust Fund, will help the Corps move these projects along. Another area where the Corps can improve is the consistent dredging of America's harbors. My home state of Georgia's economy relies heavily on the consistent dredging of the Port of Savannah and Brunswick. 2025 represented the busiest year on record for the Port of Savannah and the Port of Brunswick, which recently became America's #1 port for automobiles. Despite this incredible growth at Georgia's seaports, it has been years since Brunswick Harbor had been dredged to its federally authorized depth, leading to shoaling and threatening of ships grounding. While I'm pleased that the Corps has made Brunswick a priority this year, this vital port should not have gone this long without routine maintenance. The challenge at Brunswick is why I've made streamlining the Corps dredging processes, including contracting practices and environmental windows that seem to prevent consistent maintenance of federal channels, a top priority. Water 2024 and other recent waters have also focused on Corps recreation projects. I look forward to the Corps' implementation of these provisions to allow greater local control of the Corps' recreation sites to ensure public access. Recent failures by the Corps to manage and provide access to recreation sites at Lake Lanier in Georgia were a wake-up call that more needs to be done. Ultimately, I would like to get the Corps out of the business of running campgrounds and maintaining recreation sites so it can focus resources on navigation and flood control. Finally, I urge the Corps to prioritize implementation of Section 1315 of Water 2024 regarding the new Savannah Bluff Lock and Dam in Georgia. This issue has been around for decades, and Section 1315 provides a clear legal guideline for the Corps to follow, protecting the water supply behind the dam, providing for rehabilitation of the lock and dam, and clarifying the cost-sharing requirements. The Corps must prioritize finalizing the engineering necessary to complete the project and provide an accurate cost estimate so that all parties involved understand the cost of completing the project and can work to secure the appropriations necessary to put the issue to rest once and for all. Thank you, and I now recognize Ranking Member Wilson for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hosting the leadership of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The Corps plays a critical role for communities across the country, especially in my home state of Florida. Our ports, beaches, and hurricane preparedness depend on the Corps. We also are home to the Corps' largest environmental restoration endeavor in history, the restoration of the Florida Everglades. Assistant Secretary Telle and Lieutenant General Graham, you each carry a huge responsibility. However, I'm concerned with your ability to be successful given the conditions you are facing. In just 9 months, the Trump administration has put the Corps under tremendous pressure. First, Corps funding and budgets are getting slashed, with the president recommending major cuts to the Corps' most essential missions. Second, the Corps is losing thousands of seasoned professionals through the deferred resignation programs, with over 3,000 Corps employees leaving since the beginning of this administration. Meanwhile, the federal hiring freeze means there is nobody new coming in to fill these roles. Third, the administration is forcing the Corps' hand for political gain by pushing for unscheduled water releases, requiring legally questionable permit expedites, blocking reasonable permit requests for renewable energy, and telling them to look the other way, while a detainment camp, Alligator Alcatraz, is constructed in the middle of the Corps' largest project, the Everglades restoration. Simply put, I question how the Corps is going to fulfill its mandate to address the navigation, flood control, the environmental restoration needs of our communities with too little funding and too few Corps employees, and going against its own careful science and engineering-based practices. Now that you have been confirmed, Secretary Telle, I hope we can see better leadership and decision-making from the Corps. The Corps needs consistent, robust funding to carry out its mission. In the next budget request, I hope to see full utilization of the available Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund dollars to keep our ports running efficiently and smoothing. This is essential for our local and national economies. I also hope to see funding for the environmental infrastructure projects that have become extremely popular in the last couple of quarters. There is a clear need and desire for water infrastructure funding, especially for our tribal and minority communities facing affordability challenges. Lastly, I need assurances that the Corps will stand up for itself and not allow things like Alligator Alcatraz to be constructed. I remained appalled that this detainment camp was allowed to be expanded and operated in the heart of the Everglades. The risk of disturbing the Everglades and therefore reversing decades of federal investment and progress is far too high. The Corps simply cannot sit by idly when something will have such a detrimental impact on the hard work of the Corps. and I will look for your commitment that no federal Everglades restoration funding will be spent to address any lingering consequences of this hugely misguided decision. Secretary Telle, I'm glad that you are here and hope you have been getting up to speed on all the critical projects that I'm sure my colleagues will be asking about. I look forward to working with you and getting the Corps back on track. There is a lot of work to be done, and our ports, our waterways, our communities, and our ecosystems are counting on you, both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Larson, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Chair Collins and Ranking Member Wilson, for holding this hearing. Congratulations, Secretary Telle, on your confirmation last month. I'm happy to welcome you to the T&I Committee for your first appearance at a hearing since your confirmation. And congratulations, Lieutenant General Graham, on your promotion to Chief Engineers. I know this isn't your first time in front of the committee, but it's first time as Chief. Since 2014, this committee has honored its commitment to meet local water resources needs across the country through the bipartisan and biennial enactment of the Water Resources Development Act. Predictable passage of WRDA bills support core projects while creating jobs in construction and the industries and businesses that benefit directly from these projects. Regular enactment of WRDA bills also allows for the timely implementation of critical policy reforms that improve the function and flexibility of the Corps to respond to local water resource challenges. WRDA 2024 built on that historic bipartisan success of this committee. The law successfully authorized the construction of 21 new projects covering every facet of the Corps' missions, as well as over 150 new feasibility studies for future projects. WRDA 2024 also authorized more than $5 billion in environmental infrastructure assistance for community-driven projects, including $242 million for water and wastewater infrastructure that local officials in Western Washington State requested. These federal, state, and local partnerships are critical to help address the growing water and wastewater infrastructure needs throughout the country. Lastly, WRDA 2024 continued to expand America's navigational capacity, strengthen its supply chains, ensure our communities are resilient to the challenges posed by climate change, and increase opportunities for the Corps to partner with rural, tribal, and economically disadvantaged communities in addressing their unique needs. However, authorization of projects or studies is only the first step for communities to realize the benefits of water resource improvements. The administration must request, and Congress must provide, sufficient funding for project planning, construction, and operation and maintenance to realize the benefits of these authorized projects and activities. The bipartisan infrastructure law was a great example of how this should work. The BIL provided a large down payment, about $17 billion, for critical WRDA projects, making a positive impact on communities and creating and supporting good-paying American jobs and the U.S. economy. Contrast that with the significant reductions in core funding included in this administration's fiscal year 2026 budget request. This 24% reduction in core funding would significantly slow project delivery, delay the realization of critical transportation, flood control, and environmental benefits, worsen supply chain delivery challenges, and leave communities vulnerable to extreme weather events. The FY 2026 budget also ignores the legal requirement of WRDA to spend 100% of annual Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund collections for critical port maintenance work, as well as to dedicate 12% of those expenditures to donor and energy transfer ports. This $1 billion cut in maintenance and dredging work will lead to more costly imports and exports, further increasing costs for U.S. families and businesses. And this cut will equally affect our largest container ports, such as Seattle-Tacoma, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and New York, New Jersey, as well as ports critical to domestic energy production, such as Mobile, Houston, and New Orleans. Robust and sustained federal investment is necessary for timely implementation of flood control, navigation, environmental restoration, water supply, and other key projects. Cuts to core funding will lead to higher costs for communities and families down the road. Deferred maintenance becomes disaster recovery. Preventable failures become national emergencies. So I look forward to our continued partnership with Chair Graves, Chair Collins, and Ranking Member Wilson in developing a new bipartisan WRDA 2026. And I welcome the leadership of the Corps here today as part of that discussion. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. I would now like to welcome our witnesses and thank them for being here today. Briefly, I'd like to take a moment to explain our lighting system to our witnesses. There are 3 lights in front of you. Green light means go, yellow light means you're running out of time, and red means to please conclude your remarks. I ask unanimous consent that the witnesses' full statements be included in the record. Without objection, so ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that the record of today's hearing remain open until such time as our witnesses have provided answers to any questions that may be submitted to them in writing. Without objection, so ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that the record remain open for 15 days for any additional comments and information submitted by members or witnesses to be included in the record of today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. As your written testimony has been made a part of the record, the subcommittee asks that you limit your oral remarks to 5 minutes. With that, Assistant Secretary Telle, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Collins. Chairman Collins, Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Wilson, Ranking Member Larson, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the Army Civil Works Program and implementation of the Water Resources and Development Act. My name is Adam Telle, and I'm honored to serve as the 14th Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works and as President Trump's, Secretary Hegseth's, and Secretary Driscoll's top official responsible for overseeing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Civil Works mission. I was nominated by President Trump on March 24th of this year, and I was confirmed by the Senate on August 2nd. I began working this role immediately and have been on the job for 5.5 weeks. During this time, I've been working alongside General Graham and his team to ensure that the Army Civil Works Program is positioned to deliver on President Trump's vision for our country and on its critical mission, which this committee has had an important role in defining. I will say that I am pleased that I was able to spend a significant amount of time with the Senate during the confirmation process and throughout my career, but I am very honored to be here in front of the House of Representatives today. And I would just like to compliment the chairman of this subcommittee, Chairman Collins. He's someone who understands this mission. He understands the efficiencies we need to drive, and I believe under his leadership, he and I will be able to accomplish much together during our time in these roles. When I moved to Washington in 2005, I worked as a staff member of the United States Senate. I took that job because I believed I could make a difference in helping to represent the views and interests of the Americans I grew up with who often felt ignored or forgotten by important people in Washington. This is the reason I'm honored to be part of the Army Civil Works mission. It touches large and small communities every single day and in communities across the country. Very few government agencies' missions capture the interests of American citizens, landowners, communities, states, job creators, and their representatives here in Washington quite like this one. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers originated in 1775, 250 years ago. The America we know today is a result of the work of the Corps. Congress has given the Corps missions in addition to its original navigation mission, including flood control and ensuring the future availability of our natural resources. Because this mission is important to the American public and their elected representatives here in Washington, during my first weeks, I've been working to establish greater consistency and accountability across the 4 layers of this enterprise, which include my office and the Corps headquarters, divisions, and districts. It is my mission to deliver navigation, flood control, disaster response, and stewardship of our natural resources to the American public as effectively as possible, as quickly as possible, and as cost efficiently as possible. We must optimize our program for quality, speed, and cost if we want to do our part to protect lives and commerce as President Trump is delivering on his vision to ensure the United States remains the greatest nation in the history of the world during the 21st century. Our partners here on Capitol Hill, and particularly on this committee, have been pivotal in supporting this enterprise, and I request your partnership as I work with General Graham to ensure the Civil Works enterprise evolves to become more efficient and consistent to meet our modern demands. And the demand for the Corps' work continues to grow. To deliver against that workload, we must work in partnership with Congress, throughout the executive branch, and with our stakeholders to drive efficiency, collaboration, and results in an environment that is necessarily resource constrained. In addition to driving more efficiency into the Civil Works program, we must continue to lift the federal regulatory burden on local sponsors. This administration is committed to ending the last 5 decades of confusing and ever-changing definitions of the term waters of the United States pursuant to the Clean Water Act of 1972. Together with Administrator Zeldin and President Trump's Environmental Protection Agency, the Army has already issued interim guidance that follows the Supreme Court's Sackett decision, and we will move quickly to ensure that a permanent definition that follows the post-Sackett law of the land cuts red tape, cuts overall permitting costs, lowers the cost of doing business in communities across the country, and continues to protect America's waters. In July, my office made much-needed changes to our National Environmental Policy Act implementing procedures that will reform, modernize, and expedite the Corps' environmental reviews, eliminate unnecessary delays, and help ensure the growth of highly cost-effective and reliable infrastructure across the nation. We also recognize the opportunities provided through WRDA 2024 to address navigation, reservoir management, and beneficial use of dredge material. As we spend time today reviewing WRDA 2024, I look forward to gaining insight about your views and interests so that together we can serve America's vital infrastructure interests. Finally, I would like to take a brief moment to recognize my father, Whitney Royce Telle, who passed away this past Friday at age 73. He was a brilliant geologist, a passionate historian, a faithful husband to my wonderful mom, Rita, and a great American. He was the type of man our country needs and the type of father I hope to be. Thank you, Dad. We miss you. Thank you, Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Wilson, and the members of this committee. I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Next, General Graham, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Wilson, Ranking Member Larson, members of the subcommittee, I'm honored to testify before you today in regard to the implementation of the Water Resource Development Acts. Through the Civil Works program, the Army Corps works with our partners to study, build, and operate water resource projects focusing on our three main mission areas of commercial navigation, flood and storm damage reduction, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. Breaking those down. The navigation program, which consists of our coastal, Great Lakes, channels, as well as the inland rivers and intercoastal waterways, underpins much of the national economy, and it ensures that commodities can move reliably and efficiently. Our flood and storm damage reduction program maintains 746 dams, over 13,000 miles of federal levees, and 450 miles of shore protection. That system provides, on average, $200 billion per year, $200 billion per year in flood damages avoided. To continuously maintain and improve these mission areas, I want to thank this subcommittee for supporting the Corps' Civil Works program. As you heard from Ranking Member Larson, your commitment since 2014 to pass biennial Water Resource Development Acts has provided the Corps with the authorities necessary to address the changing needs of the nation's water resource infrastructure. And WRDA 24, Congress authorized new construction projects, new feasibility studies, and new environmental infrastructure projects. These studies and projects, when funded, will strengthen the supply chain, better protect Americans from flooding, and improve degraded aquatic environments. We deeply value the authorities you have entrusted to us, and our pledge is to put them to work to deliver for the American people. To that end, the Army Corps' objective every day is to safely deliver quality studies and projects on schedule and within budget. To this end, and I spent 4 hours with the team yesterday looking at this, our current on-schedule rate across the Civil Works portfolio is 80.1%. That's a low, low B, and that's unacceptable. This performance is influenced by factors that we can control and we can't control. Focusing on those things we can control, the Corps is absolutely committed to procedural improvements in the following three areas. First, get the engineering right. The focus here is on the maturity of our designs. We'll not request project authorization unless the design is advanced enough that we truly understand what it is that we're proposing to build. That threshold is usually around the 35% level. There are some nuances that we need to work through with Congress on this regarding the complexities of cost share and how to break down large, complex projects, but fundamentally, we need to better understand what it is we're proposing to build before we request that you authorize us to build it. Second thing we need to improve upon is getting the project management right. The focus here is on crafting logical, fully resourced schedules and sticking dogmatically to them, ensuring that we're delivering these important projects with a great sense of urgency. Finally, the third thing is to get the team right. We're striving to bring together the right mix of talent with either onboard manning or by leveraging the incredible talents of the private sector firms. So in closing, the path to successful delivery is clear. Plan projects thoroughly and then build them rapidly with the right team of master craftsmen. I look forward to working with this committee to stay on that path. Thank you again, Chairman, for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to addressing your questions.
Thank you all for your testimony. We will now turn to questions from the panel, and I will recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. As I mentioned in my statement, I'm concerned about dredging backlogs. In my home state of Georgia, the Port of Brunswick went years without being dredged to its authorized depth, which led to multiple ship groundings and hurting our supply chain. Unfortunately, this is due to multiple bureaucratic issues within the federal government, including antiquated contracting processes, nonsensical environmental windows, and budgeting that doesn't make sense in the real world. For either of you, can you briefly describe how the Corps is improving its dredging processes to ensure that the ports throughout the country get the dredged when they need to?
Chairman Collins, thank you for the question. Dredging capacity is critically important to our ability to be competitive in the 21st century. This is a time when others across the globe are trying to displace the United States of America as the greatest nation in the history of the world. And if we can't open our ports and harbors via regular dredging, we're not going to be as competitive as we enter this global competition. You specifically raised issues around contracting. I think you're right. I think we have to take a very hard look at how we're contracting, looking at the capacity that exists out there in the private sector. You mentioned environmental windows. This is a critically important challenge because our ability to dredge is constrained by these environmental windows quite often. There are ways that we are researching right now to expand those environmental windows, and I'll let General Graham expand on that if he would like. And then there's also a need to recapitalize assets that are native to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. If we do all of these things, we have the potential to increase our dredging capacity at a time when our nation desperately needs it. Your port and your state is critically important to our nation, and I've heard this throughout on both sides of the aisle and in both houses of Congress, that this is critically important to the nation and to the members of Congress and the Senate. So I look forward to working with General Graham to help get this right. General Graham, I'll defer to you for any additional comments you may have.
Chairman, we've got many members of the dredging industry with us today, and so I'm pleased to say that we're working collaboratively with industry to bring capacity on board. And I'm delighted to see the progress that's been made. I think with the pipeline dredges, there's good capacity out there right now. And the industry is working to bring more of the ocean-growing hopper dredges. As Mr. Telle spoke to, by 2027, we should have a replacement for the Corps' East Coast hopper dredge, which will be known as the Donnelly, to backstop where industry capacity falls short. Where I'm most concerned right now is dredging capacity up on the Great Lakes. And so that has our full interest.
Thank you. I'm also concerned about the Corps' involvement in recreation at its sites. Earlier this year, multiple recreation sites in Georgia and around the country were shut down because there were no Corps personnel there to run them. However, it seems to me that some of these responsibilities don't need to fall on the Corps. For either of you, what opportunities exist to either transfer ownership of the Corps' recreational assets to locals or to hand over the responsibility to locals at the Corps' owned recreation sites?
Chairman Collins, thank you for the question. And as you importantly point out, one of the ancillary benefits of the Corps' work is that it often provides opportunities for Americans to enjoy recreational opportunities on lands owned by the Corps of Engineers. Unfortunately, the recreational workforce is a seasonal one, and I would say that there were some shortages in the workforce this spring that frustrated many Americans who enjoy Corps of Engineers facilities, frustrated many members of Congress who represent those Americans. It's unacceptable, but I will say that President Trump's administration recognized this problem very early and worked very quickly to begin rehiring these folks, which is a largely seasonal workforce, to restore recreation this summer. And I will assure you, Chairman Collins, that we will get this issue fixed before next summer's recreational season begins. With regard to transferring responsibility to local entities, I'm a believer across the board that the more we can delegate our authorities and our responsibilities to state and local partners, the better off we're going to be. They can do things more efficiently quite often and more cost effectively than we can here in Washington. And so I'm looking forward to working with you and with General Graham to ensure that we're able to delegate as much of that responsibility as we can so we can get it right for the American public.
All right. I had one more thing I wanted to run by unless you wanted to add to it, General. I wanted to ask you about the new Savannah Bluff Lock and Dam. When are you going to be able to release the implementation guidance for the water 2024? And you got a cost estimate?
Chairman, thank you for that question. On the new Savannah Bluff Lock and Dam, we are working with the Assistant Secretary's office on that implementation guidance, but we're not sitting still. We are working right now on doing a structural assessment of the dam and the lock to make sure that we know the shape that that's in. That should take about a year to do that work, and then we'll be prepared to ensure that that pool stays stable and we'll be able to comply with the guidance we've been given in Water 24.
Is that a year from today, or is that a year from when you started, or is that early next year? Or?
That would be, Chairman, let me get back to you with a full
Okay.
answer on the exact date when we're going to finish.
All right. Well, I'd appreciate that. With that, give 5 minutes to the ranking member, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Adam Telle, how are you? Good, welcome.
Good, ma'am. Thank you.
Section 219 authorizations for Miami-Dade have grown to over $190 million, and Broward County received a $50 million authorization in WRDA 2024. Secretary Telle, what is your plan to deliver these projects efficiently? And will you commit to putting in priority order Section 2019 projects for historically underserved neighborhoods in Miami-Dade that face the most severe flooding and water quality issues?
Ranking Member Wilson, thank you for the question. In a necessarily resource-constrained environment, I'm focused on ensuring that the Corps of Engineers is focused on its core CORE missions, which include navigation, flood control, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. With that said, Congress has often called on the Corps of Engineers to take on municipal water supply that has traditionally been the responsibility of state or local governments. And in places like your district, where the law says that we ought to prioritize these efforts to help local communities access reliable and safe drinking water, we are committed to following the law, and I absolutely look forward to working with you to make sure that the communities within your district that are most in need of this are benefited by the laws that this committee has helped enact.
Thank you. And General Graham, as the Corps' top engineer, what specific operational steps are being taken to ensure that timely progress on the comprehensive Everglades restoration plan?
Ranking Member Wilson, thank you for that question. We're working collaboratively with the state of Florida right now to ensure that we're focusing on the end result, on restoring those Everglades as fast as possible. And whoever is in the best position to do that is who is going to basically, we're going to turn to them to do the work. And we've got a great governance infrastructure in place right now, and met this week to ensure that that team has the proper oversight and we deliver efficiently.
So tell me this, how workforce losses under the federal hiring freeze threaten Corps capacity. So how are you ensuring that the Corps maintains the technical expertise necessary to deliver very complex projects like Everglades restoration?
Ranking Member Wilson, and thank you for that question. We go through about, our annual attrition rate is around 12%. So for an organization, they'll just round up to 40,000 people, that's around 4,000 folks that we have to replace every year. And so we continuously are on a hunt for talent to bring new people in and train them up. Optimizing the workforce and the guidance of Assistant Secretary Telle is a paramount imperative for us So we're working to make sure that the workforce is at the right size to deliver on the work and that they have the right talents. And I'm confident that we'll be able to do that.
You're confident that you will be able to do that?
I am.
Okay. So Secretary Telle, the Back Bay study has been elevated as a priority for addressing storm surge and sea level rise in Miami-Dade County. How will you ensure sustained federal leadership and funding so that Back Bay studies recommendations are implemented on schedule and equitably benefit the most vulnerable communities? You have a plan in place?
Ranking Member Wilson, thank you for the question, and you've identified an issue that's important in your district and throughout the country. In the deep history of the Corps of Engineers, the focus on flood control related to riverine systems, where the flooding was relatively predictable in that it happened on an annual basis, generally during the wet season or during snow melt or during the spring. Riverine systems are more easy to engineer against flood protection than our coastal systems. In recent years, the Congress and various administrations have worked to try to get our hands around how we can protect coastal areas better, and it's a big challenge. And many of these projects are regional in scope. They're complex. They have many different. They're systems of systems that all depend on the other. And General Graham and I have spoken many times in my short time in this office, and we'll continue to work to ensure that when we have these large, complex regional projects, that we provide you here in the Congress with elements of those projects that are budgetable, actionable, and separable, which means the Congress can make investments in those projects in a way that allows General Graham and his team to deliver on pieces of them and provide flood protection to communities like yours without studying it forever, and to actually build things. And so that's one of the strategies. There are many more, and I look forward to working with you on getting this right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Bost for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the witnesses for being here. You know, Mr. Telle, the levee maintenance and oversight in my district is vitally important, since I have 3 navigable waterways with the Mississippi, the Ohio, and the Kaskaskia River. And one bad flood can lead to hundreds of acres of farmlands, homes, historical properties, livelihoods lost in an instant. Mr. Telle, I mentioned in our call last week, I was concerned about a scour hole that continues to grow next to the levee in Monroe County, Illinois, and how dangerous it could be if the Mississippi floods. Can you speak to how the Corps keeps track of threats of levees like the scour hole and when you know to step in? And also, how are you working to streamline the levee maintenance process and your communications efforts with stakeholders?
Congressman Bost, thank you for the question, and thank you for the job you do representing in a very important part of our country in southern Illinois, where 2 of our nation's most important rivers converge. You mentioned the Ohio and the Mississippi. It's very important that we get levee safety right and levee maintenance right. And so I will defer to General Graham on the inventory process that he uses to help advise us on which levees need our most rapid attention. But I will say that one of my priorities in this role is to work to make sure the 4 layers of the organization that I mentioned in my opening statement, my office, the Assistant Secretary's office, General Graham's headquarters, our divisions, our 9 divisions, and our 39 districts, and I believe that your district is under the jurisdiction of multiple of those districts, are working in a harmonious way that measures priorities across the nation in a consistent way and delivers the results that you and the taxpayers expect from our United States Army Corps of Engineers. I'll let General Graham address the question of the inventory of our flood control infrastructure.
Sure. Go ahead. Representative Bost, as the Assistant Secretary mentioned, communication is absolutely key with the local levee sponsors through the local district to make sure that we truly understand the status of those levees. So our commitment to you is to ensure that the team is prepared and ready to have the dialogue as Mother Nature votes and puts water up on those levees, and we have a slide or a damage, and then we can get that rapidly into a funding package and up here for Congress.
Well, it kind of goes to my next question. can you, and I think it's probably for you, General Graham, can you provide an update on the Corps' construction and maintenance backlog and any status update on when we will see a report detailing the projects? Because when we did the 2018 WRDA, there was a part of that asked for a report to be done by the Corps and delivered to us it was due in 2020, and we still don't have that.
Representative Boast, I'll check on the status of where that report is, and we'll get back to you.
Okay. You know, it is vitally important that we work together, and as was mentioned, I do have 3 corps that touch my district, and they all try to do a good job. But sometimes we run into, this is, what we get is we get a tremendous amount of these questions prepared by staff. This is my question, though. So, since being in Congress, I've dealt with what was known as the Lynn Small levy. It was not a federal levy, it was a state levy, but it was a 5-year levy. When it blew in the holiday flood, which was no holiday in 2015, it actually started trying to cut through and actually Dogtooth Bend in the state of Illinois, which is, that's not just a redneck statement, that's what it's actually called, okay? And it tried to cut through, and it's still trying to cut through. And I know we're doing a lot with riprap and everything there. They're not they're not bringing the farmland back. It has now all been put in reserve and everything like that. But if you would, could you keep us informed on what your St. Louis Corps continues to see? Because originally they were dying, it wasn't going to be a navigable problem, which is kind of embarrassing when they say that, and then all of a sudden a barge ends up in farmland. So it is a very, very, very important issue to the district. Can't get the farmland back for the people that lost it when that levee gave way. But it's something, if you could, I'd like you to keep an eye on.
Representative Boast, the bank stabilization mission along all of our rivers, in particular the mighty Mississippi, is critical to us. Dogtooth Bend, we are tracking the stability of that bank.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Larson for 5 minutes. Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Telle, in the bipartisan infrastructure law, Congress made investments in the Corps, the $17 billion. You discussed approaches for speeding up delivery. There's another approach as well, and that's the robust and consistent funding. The Corps' current construction backlog is close to $100 billion, including $7.5 billion in new projects that we authorized. But there's a roughly 27% cut to the Corps' construction count in the budget request, so it doesn't help close the gap. Can you help us understand this relationship between the construction backlog and the President's proposed budget that that does not come close to helping us close that gap?
Ranking Member Larson, thank you for the question, and it's an important one. To put a finer point on the point you made, there are $78 billion worth of projects that have been authorized, but for which Congress has not yet appropriated funding. There's $44 billion worth of work for which Congress has appropriated money, but the money has not been executed. Of that $44 billion, $12 billion of that is greater than 5 years old. I say that to say that the demand for the Corps' services far outpaces the supply. And even under the most optimistic projections about the ability of Congress to deliver against that work, it's still going to be small in comparison to the demand. And that's why we have to get smarter. One of the things that I've learned that I'm going to be working with Chairman Collins and the rest of the committee on is that, these are rough numbers, but my preliminary work shows that for every dollar that Congress appropriates to the Corps of Engineers, only about a third of it actually goes to build or maintain things. A third of it goes to land acquisition, a third of it goes to construction, as I mentioned, and a third of it goes, for each project, goes to employees within the districts at the Corps of Engineers. And so one of the things that I'm going to be working with General Graham in this committee on is better understanding how the unique budget structure of the Corps of Engineers, which includes project-based budgeting, Like I said, it's delivering about, in that one-third breakdown, how that creates incentives throughout the organization that may or may not align with the incentives of the American taxpayer. And so I look forward to working with you, whatever the appropriated amount is, to deliver the most for the taxpayer dollar.
Second, this might be a little easier because we directed the administration, any administration, through Order 2024, to obligate 100% of the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, as well as to the donor and energy transfer ports, 12% set aside. And yet, the budget just clearly does not do that, even though we said do that. Can you commit to following the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund spending allocations and funding targets that are required by law?
Ranking Member Larson, we do commit to follow the law. And as it relates to donor and energy ports, these are projects which this committee has determined contribute more to the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund than they receive in return. And while we're focused on making sure that we have access to our ports, this program seeks to provide closer to the shore infrastructure to those ports. I will say that the 2025 work plan and the FY26 President's budget does not preclude investments in these activities, even if it doesn't specifically call them out.
Doesn't preclude it, but the law says what to do. So a little closer over to my state, can you help us with the status of the Salmon Recovery Continuing Authority Program?
I'm sorry, sir, could you repeat the question?
So what's the status of the Salmon Recovery Continuing Authority Program?
Ranking Member Larson, I will defer to General Graham on the specifics, but what I can say is we are seeing in the Continuing Authorities Program as we enter the end of the fiscal year and into next fiscal year, there has been some carryover, meaning that there are balances that exist there. And so we're working with General Graham's team to ensure that we liquidate as many of those balances as we can efficiently, but there may be some carryover into the next fiscal year.
Rather than have General Graham answer that, we'll follow up with him because I also want to be sure that you understand the Word of 24 created a pilot program within the Tribal Partnership Program for 5 projects in my state that were supposed to be carried out off tribal lands. Is that pilot program ready?
I'll have to get back to you on how ready it is, but I will say that we respect the role that the tribes play here and the Tribal Partnership Program which this committee has placed into law. We look forward to working with you to make sure that gets implemented among the 180 provisions that were included in WRDA 2024.
Just one more thing, Mr. Chair, if I may, just a request. So sent earlier, the Democrats sent earlier to your office our priorities for the WRDA 24 Implementation Committee, and we did that in February. I understand you weren't there then. Maybe it's still sitting there, but that request, we appreciate if you ensure that each of those priorities are implemented swiftly.
Yes, Mr. Ranking Member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and I recognize Mr. Taylor for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Chairman Collins and Ranking Member Wilson, for holding this hearing today, and thank you to our witnesses for taking the time and making the sacrifices necessary to be here to speak to us, and thank you all for your service. As we begin the next WRDA reauthorization, and with the Ohio River running along my district, we need to ensure that the Army Corps implements policies that utilize the river's resources to create economic activity in the Appalachian region. My district's essentially all Appalachian. The Ohio River continues to be a vital shipping route, transporting over 200 million tons of cargo yearly. Farmers and businesses rely on the locks and dams along the Ohio River to ship their products with minimal delays. With the ongoing maintenance on the Captain Anthony Meldahl locks and dam, commerce and recreation along the Ohio River could be affected. General, what steps does the Army Corps take when undergoing maintenance like this on locks and dams to ensure that navigation can continue?
Representative Taylor, thanks. Having grown up in Pittsburgh at the beginning of the Ohio River, I have a great love and affection for that river system. It is all a slackwater system. It is all confounded by locks and dams, and so the maintenance of those is absolutely critical. Delighted to see the recapitalization of a lot of those facilities, as well as commitments to the long-term maintenance, particularly on the main stem of the Ohio that you spoke to. We work hand in glove with industry and the Inland Waterway Users Board to make sure that we look well in advance on when we're going to take down any main chambers. The good news on the Ohio River is that there is always a backup chamber with its auxiliary chamber. We understand that that's a great inconvenience and delay to industry when you go from 1,200 foot down to a 700-foot chamber. So the key there is to provide the navigation industry a reliable transportation system. It's unscheduled outages that are the bane to their industry, and that's our commitment, is to ideally do away with any unscheduled outages and stay ahead of maintenance.
Thank you, General. I've been proud of this administration's priority to ensure that taxpayer dollars are being used effectively. Unfortunately, there was a project in my district that faced significant delays and rising costs because of the actions of a third party and was not the fault of the Army Corps. Delays in vital flood prevention and infrastructure can cause potential harm to local communities. General, when the Army Corps faces challenges with contractors and other third parties, what steps do you take to ensure that instances like this are prevented in the future?
Congressman Taylor, so we have a tracking system where we basically give a grade on how that contractor performs. And if the contractor performed unsatisfactorily or if they were unsafe, we don't want to do business with them again. As we see that they are starting to fail in their performance, our commitment is to work hand in glove with them to make them successful. But if they prove themselves not to be a successful contractor, they can't deliver for us, and then we'll do our best not to work with them again.
That makes sense. And when you're choosing a contractor, does their past performance, your ability
Absolutely.
to vet their past performance, is taken into account, even if not necessarily the best price?
Absolutely. Their past performance is one of the main factors we look at.
Okay. In April, the Ohio River reached over 60 feet, the highest in more than 28 years, causing massive flooding in Cincinnati. While this is a rare occurrence, it's imperative that the federal government and its agencies prepare for potential floods to protect its citizens and mitigate damage. General, following flooding, how does the Army Corps work with state and local leaders in their flood risk management plan to prepare for potential tragedies in the future?
Representative Taylor, thank you for that question. Immediately after a storm happens, we have authorities, Public Law 8499, that allow us to responsibly work with local communities to immediately repair that damage where we can. We also have a planning assistance to state continuing authority that'll allow us to assist them to look at that watershed on what just happened and start to look at options to make that community more resilient to flooding in the future. And then that could spin off into future feasibility studies with us.
Okay. Thank you both again for being here today, and I yield back, Chairman.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Garamendi for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Telle, sorry about the loss of your dad, and so I'm going to kind of back down here a little bit. But you have an extremely important job, as you know. In your testimony, you said that a few government agencies capture the interests of the American citizens, landowners, communities, and states, job creators like the Corps of Engineers. And you went on to say the Corps supports commercial navigation, flood risks, restoration of aquatic systems, and stewardship of our natural resources. Your words, your task. You've got a very, very important task out ahead of you. However, you're faced with a very, very difficult situation, as is the General. One in which the administration has decided to go after the Corps of Engineers and significantly reduce the funding and the staff. 3,000 employees are gone. And General, you say you can figure out how to do this. I'd love to see it, because I'd like to see the 2026 work plan. That will tell us how you intend to implement the terrible cuts that have been made by this administration to the Corps of Engineers' critical functions to carry out Assistant Secretary Telle's stated tasks and goals. How are you going to do it? you're looking at a 30% reduction in operation and maintenance. You've already heard from several members of this committee, and you'll hear even more. Operation and maintenance is flood control. It is also the dredging. And by the way, you better obey the law, which requires 100% of the money available through the programs where we tax incoming shipments. 100% of that must be spent for the Harbor Maintenance Fund. Apparently, you're going to have to stretch to do that if you have a 30% reduction in O&M. You have a very difficult plan, and apparently you are totally ignoring the 1 year of work done by Democrats and Republicans on this committee, putting together the 2024 WRDA plan. It is detail. We're not going to get the detail from you today because you're not giving us the work plan. But you better get it to us quick, because by the end of this month, we will be dealing with the 2026 budget. And I will guarantee you, and anybody else that cares to listen, you will not have my vote for that 2026 work plan unless these issues are addressed, including how you intend to obey the law. WRDA is not just a bunch of words. It is the law, and you are required to carry it out. And unfortunately, you've been dealt a terrible hand by the president as he carries out the 2025 goals. So, where are we? You are in one serious mess. And I will guarantee you this. This is not one half of what I intend to lay on both of you when you come back here with that work plan. And it had better carry out the law. 100% harbor maintenance, the programs that were authorized, and the work plan that was developed last year. Is it going to be carried out, or where are the cuts going to occur? We do know that in the early days of this administration, the administration decided to take it out on the blue states on the West Coast. And so $200+ million of necessary programs, a dam in Washington that had to be replaced, will not be upgraded and replaced as a result of a decision that was made to take money away from blue state Washington and a smaller but necessary amount of money from California. Will you restore that? If I give you a few minutes, you'd probably say, we'll do our best. Well, your best isn't enough. The law is the law. The WRDA is the law of the land. And you are required, this administration is required to carry out the law and not to write their own version of it. So, I'll see you next time around. And you better have answers for all of these things. Otherwise, I will unload on you then. This is just a touch. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Mann for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today, and thank you for your service to the country. I represent the big first district of Kansas, which is mostly the western two-thirds of the state of Kansas, except for the area around Wichita. Our water in Kansas comes from, of course, rivers and lakes, but we also have the Ogallala Aquifer, which is a big priority for us in our agriculture as well. WRDA 2024 made several common sense policy reforms to improve project delivery and identify areas of focus for the Corps to maximize public benefits. For Kansas, it's vitally important that the Corps is able to quickly and efficiently implement guidance and provisions from WRDA 2024 and previous WRDAs. And I look forward to hearing from you today on ways that Congress can work with you to help to achieve this. Just a handful of questions. First off, how will the Corps work with the EPA and the Trump administration to provide a definition of WOTUS that adheres to the precedent established in the Sackett decision? I know you referenced that in your testimony, but what's the latest there, and when do you anticipate a definition coming out, and what does that look like?
Congressman, thank you for the question, and you've identified a critically important issue. The term waters of the United States was included as the jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act as it relates to Section 404 in 1972, and since that time, there's been a lack of certainty and clarity about what that term means. And the Sackett decision by the Supreme Court in 2023 provides a law of the land that provides as much clarity as we've had since 1972 about that, this is an important issue for farmers and landowners in your state. And I would just say that we've taken action. President Trump's administration has taken action. In March, we issued interim guidance to adhere to the Sackett decision as the Corps of Engineers goes about doing its work in partnership with the EPA. We're in the process of issuing a proposed rule that will permanently enshrine the Sackett decision in the way that the Corps and the EPA go about carrying out their responsibilities. And so I look forward to this action, providing clarity and understanding to stakeholders across the country so that we can get to work. We can provide liberty and freedom to Americans as they go about doing what they do best, which is innovate and deliver on the economy.
Wholeheartedly agree and appreciate your work and efforts on that. That's, impacts our farmers, our oil and gas producers, manufacturers, a lot of folks as well. So thank you. Second question, what's the status of implementing Subtitle B of WRDA 2024 to elevate water supply as a primary mission of the Corps?
Thank you for the question, sir. As you identify the three core missions of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have been navigation, flood risk mitigation, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. Water supply winds up being a very important, especially in the western part of our country, an important part of the Corps' mission, and we have to work very closely with our partners at the Bureau of Reclamation within the states to make sure that we're keeping a close eye on water supply as we think about ensuring that communities don't experience floods and that we can quite often respond to natural disasters. And so water supply is already an important part of what General Graham considers as he's allocating resources that are held in reservoirs. And it's something that we've been focused on and will continue to focus on in light of WRDA 2024.
Great. And then last question, what's the update on the Corps' construction and maintenance backlog? Are there specific categories of projects contributing to the backlog more than others?
Congressman, I ran through the numbers of the authorized but unappropriated and appropriated but unexpended. And I would say that all categories, feasibility studies, construction, project engineering and design, construction and maintenance, all have issues. And these things take far too long. They cost far too much. And I'm committed to working with this committee and with General Graham and his team at the Corps to get at that problem. We can deliver more flood control, more water supply, more navigation for the country for less money and more quickly if we work closely together. And so I'm committed to that, sir.
I agree. Well, thank you both again for being here, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and I recognize Mr. Ryan for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here. Mr. Telle, I want to join in expressing condolences, not just from me, but from my constituents for your loss. I want to take the few minutes I have to highlight my district and an important priority in my community, which is experiencing a major drinking water crisis, and ask for your help and your commitment to work with me on that, which you've already been doing a great effect. The village of Curious Joel is one of the youngest and fastest growing communities in the nation. It's also the largest municipality in my district, and the average size of a family there is 5.37 people, which is double the national average. The village has experienced continued rapid population growth. Since 1990, it has 4x increased as the community has grown, which was a great thing. Because of this, the village has been working really hard to ensure it has infrastructure it needs across the board to support this growth. In particular, though, the current water infrastructure is at an incredibly dangerous point where they've literally had to truck in water at peak demand points because they just have not been able to keep up. And to be clear, they have a great plan that they've been executing for decades now. It's just, as we all know, things move too slow, and as that escalates, they're in a critical situation. So that's why we're specifically asking your help. I know this is something that the Corps has taken on in moments of critical need. Specifically, Curious Joel has been working on the fifth and final component of a multi-phase project more than 20 years in the making called the Catskill Aqueduct Connection Project. It basically runs a 13-mile pipeline from the Catskill Aqueduct, which is the water supply for New York City, actually, and connects this community into that supply. It's a great approach and idea that's very synergistic for not only Curious Joel, but many other surrounding communities. The current and final stage of the project is a water filtration and treatment plant that'll treat around 2 million gallons of water per day. I've been working really closely with the village on the project since I've been in office. We got an initial $1 million in community project funding, but we certainly need a lot more. The project was included in Section 219 of the Environmental Infrastructure Project going back to 2007. And then in 2024, I was able to 5X that to $25 million authorized with the help of my colleagues on the committee. General Graham, I want to commend you and your team. Colonel Young from the New York District has been phenomenal, and the whole team. They've just did a site visit with myself and the village leadership earlier this year. We were able to show them the project. They spent several hours with us and committed at a broad level to continue to support the project, working with the state, New York State as well. So I just wanted to flag that for you both, ask your help, and specifically ask if General Graham, and of course would invite you as well, Assistant Secretary, if you'd sit with me to just talk a little bit more about this project, figure out how we can get it moving, because we are just, we're really running out of time, and so just would ask your help on that and any thoughts you have on that, starting with you, General Graham.
Representative Ryan, we're certainly tracking the aqueduct connection that village is working to make, and subject to funding on the 219 program, we're prepared to assist them.
Congressman, happy to visit with you at any point and learn more about this project and see how we can be of help to you.
I appreciate that, and we'd love to follow up with you on that and understand, amidst all the priorities that you all have on your priorities list, what we can be doing to make sure that this is seen as it is, because it isn't reaching an existential situation. That's the main question that I have, and again, I just want to, as a former Army guy, it's good to have Army folks in this committee as well. Appreciate the service you're both doing for our nation, and yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and I now recognize Mr. Fong for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here. To the Assistant Secretary, my condolences to you and your family on your loss. Wanted to also move on to thanking the President for his leadership on California water. We haven't had a president focus on our water policies in California in a very long time, and the fact that he signed 2 executive orders, one on the first day he was inaugurated, certainly signifies the importance he takes to our needs in California. President Trump's executive order titled Emergency Measures to Provide Water Resources in California directs federal agencies like the Army Corps to take emergency measures to streamline policies constricting water infrastructure construction in California while maximizing water delivery. The Red Bank and Fancher Creek dams that service my district are authorized as single-purpose flood control facilities. Army Corps studies will analyze modifying existing infrastructure like these to increase water storage that will directly be used and managed groundwater recharge in California. I wanted to ask both of you, but maybe first to the Assistant Secretary, how does the Army Corps plan to streamline its policies to prioritize review and approval of water projects like Red Bank and Fancher Creek, which will meaningfully impact water supply in agricultural regions like my district?
Congressman Fong, thank you for the question. And I would just agree with you wholeheartedly about President Trump's commitment to water supply in California. We're very fortunate to have a president who is so focused on water issues in your state and throughout the country. And I would also compliment the California congressional delegation, Congressman LaMalfa, Congressman Calley on this committee for your expertise on this issue that's very important to your state. As you've conveyed to me and your colleagues have conveyed to me, we can make the pie bigger in terms of water supply in California if we're willing to do what it takes to optimize the use of the reservoirs there to keep this precious resource available. That's in the form of water control manuals, using forecast-informed reservoir operations, These are all activities that we're focused on throughout your state. And if we increase that water supply in California, we're going to be able to deliver on the needs of farmers in your state, the municipalities in your state, and when disaster strikes, we're going to have more water to be responsive to it. And so I look forward to working with you and members of the California delegation under President Trump's leadership to deliver on that hope.
Thank you. Also, thank you for that. I wanted to mention two other projects. As you know, for several years, my community has been working with the Corps to initiate a feasibility study to raise Pine Flat Dam in my district. We talked about that as well when you were generous enough to offer some time. This project has broad bipartisan support since it adds critical flood protection needed to prevent the kind of devastation we saw in the Central Valley during the flooding events of 2023. So look forward to working with you on how we can commence work on some of the requirements for feasibility determinations so that we can move through the process quicker. And then the Success Reservoir Enlargement Project provides, again, more significant flood protection for our communities and farms in my district. Once completed, this project will more than double flood protection, creating over 28,000 acre-feet of new water storage. There's $15 million remaining to close out this major project, so certainly look forward to the partnership to funding this project, complete the Lake Success project to ensure that this project becomes operational as quickly as possible. I do want to end my opportunity to chat with you both about the use of advanced forecasting technologies like ASO and FIRO that allows us to better map and predict snowpack and watershed levels. How does the Corps plan to incorporate a greater use of available technology to better manage watersheds, snowpack, and so that our existing infrastructure can better protect communities from floods while also increasing water supply levels? And that goes to either one of you.
Congressman Fung, you've identified a critical issue, which is to optimize the use of our existing infrastructure. When we were able to use things like forecast-informed reservoir operations to update water control manuals that may not have been updated since the 1970s, we can use all of the sensing and data capabilities that we've developed in the interim to store more water, provide more water, take smarter risks when necessary, without really spending a single dollar on new infrastructure. So you've identified a critical area where we can do more and better, and I'll defer to General Graham on any of the specifics if you'd like to.
Can't really say much more than that. Assistant Secretary Telle, wringing the maximum value we can out of all the projects around the Central Valley is absolutely key. And so we're delighted to see Lake Mendocino and its new water control manual coming online this month. And that's the first of the FIRO, forecast-informed reservoir operations, water control manuals that we'll be able to put into operation. And we're continuing to work on the additional ones.
Thank you. I've run out of time, but water is life for us in the Central Valley in California. We are the food production capital of our state, and I look forward to partnering with both of you. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Pappas for 5 minutes for questions.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to you and the ranking member for holding this session. I want to thank our witnesses, Assistant Secretary Telle and Lieutenant General Graham. We appreciate all your hard work, and I can attest to the significance of the Corps in terms of New Hampshire and projects that we have seen undertaken over the last several years. We're really grateful for your attention to a number of initiatives. I wanted to build on what the chairman was asking you about, Mr. Assistant Secretary, around recreation, an issue that's top of mind to a lot of folks in New Hampshire, where our communities are really rooted in access to the wilderness and the outdoors. As you know, the Army Corps has been subject to a hiring freeze imposed by the administration. It's impacted the New England District recreation areas. It's left recreation areas in New Hampshire unable to hire summer rangers at all who serve in essential roles and keep those areas open and safe and accessible for individuals and families to enjoy. Without summer rangers, recreation areas in New Hampshire where people boat, swim, fish, and hike experienced reduced hours, limited access to facilities, and significantly reduced services throughout this past summer. So I share those concerns, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about an action plan to address this. But I just want to add that it's not just the summer months. It's all year round in New Hampshire in terms of our outdoor recreation opportunities, and it's connected to our economy. The outdoor economy represents a major sector in New Hampshire, employs tens of thousands of people. We're among the top 10 states nationwide in terms of proportion of GDP that's generated based on outdoor recreation. So whether it's activities in the summer, access to lakes and ponds in the winter, for ice fishing, hiking, and hunting, this goes 365 days throughout the year. So I'm wondering if you can expand a little bit more on access to outdoor recreation, how we can get more people out there to make sure that we're not compromising not only access but economic opportunities. And I'll just add that I think the notion that this could somehow be shifted to other agencies or to state and local taxpayers, that's not something that folks in New Hampshire I know would support. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how we can improve this. And I think people at the local level have great urgency around wanting to see some action.
Congressman, thank you for the question, and thank you for astutely pointing out that Corps of Engineers facilities do, many of them do attract visitors throughout the year. With regard to the workforce that supports the recreational activities of the Corps of Engineers, this is an area that the Trump administration identified very early on as a challenge, and instituted a program to hire these folks as quickly as possible. And we've already made significant progress against that goal. We're tracking it every single day in cooperation with General Graham, and it's something that we intend to have fixed. We've already addressed over the course of this summer, but heading into the winter months and into next summer, I'm confident that we will have it. We will have a workforce that meets the needs of the American public as it relates to using Corps of Engineers facilities for recreation.
Well, we're hoping we can continue to communicate with you on this. It's important, and where there are exemptions needed from the hiring freeze, I think we absolutely should be looking for maximum capabilities from the Corps to be able to fill these positions.
Congressman, we are aggressively hiring today against these needs, and look forward to working with you and giving you more information about that.
Thank you. Additional question for you, Mr. Assistant Secretary. A key priority of mine in the last WRDA was language encouraging the Secretary to coordinate with apprenticeship programs when conducting corrosion prevention activities, as well as the use of industry-recognized standards and best practices. This will enhance the quality and effectiveness of corrosion prevention measures through certified training programs, ensuring the integrity of our infrastructure over the long term. So I was pleased with this inclusion in the legislation. I'm wondering if you can talk about any coordination with apprenticeship programs, whether it's on corrosion prevention or other things that will help support the needs of our infrastructure.
Congressman, corrosion is an important issue when it comes to our nation's water infrastructure. When water and metal touch, corrosion, and oxygen touch, corrosion occurs, and much of our infrastructure is far too old. And so anything we can do to get against the corrosion challenge on our nation's infrastructure, locks and dams, and other infrastructure related to the United States Army Corps of Engineers mission is something we ought to take a close look at it. And I congratulate you on your leadership in that area.
Well, thank you. There are apprenticeships out there that are the gold standard that ensure that workers are skilled and that they're using best practices. So I hope that the Corps can continue to benefit from those types of programs. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Mast for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. Secretary, General, nice to see you both. You guys are a pretty new team working together. Getting along well? All right. Secretary, appreciate you coming in the other day. It was a great conversation. Appreciate your work on the issues. I know you bring a wealth of knowledge, having been and working for a number of senators. Now you're getting your PhD and everything, but I know you've had a lot of exposure to everything, so I'm glad to see you both in here. Just want to have a little conversation about something I frequently do, Lake Okeechobee. It's the biggest thing that affects me as it relates to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I would frame the conversation in this way. Corps of Engineers does not like to deal with issues of, quote, water quality, but water quality affects us all. You guys have to move waters of different levels of quality. You have to manage water standards in different parts for the outlets of Lake Okeechobee. The water quality standards for what goes south into the Everglades are not what the east and west coast of Florida get to have in terms of 8 parts per billion, or 8 parts per billion is the standard that the EPA set for what's toxic algal blooms. 10 parts per billion for water going down to the Everglades for phosphorus. We don't have those kind of standards to the east and west. But we have a lot of toxic algal blooms on Lake Okeechobee. And that affects your people. The water quality affects your people. I don't know, have either of you had to be on top of the Port Mayaca Lock and Dam with algal blooms measuring 100, 200, 300 parts per billion microcystin? Have you done that yet,
I haven't had a chance to do that yet,
General?
Congressman.
So, Congressman Mass, I think the last time I met you was out in the field with your son at Port Mayarka when there was an
there.
algal bloom going on.
So you know what that's like.
Absolutely. I think your son
he stayed in the
adequately
car.
walked out of the car, said, "Dad, this place stinks," and he was absolutely right.
And so the point is that quality, your people got to stand on that. How many hours a day? 8, 10 hours a day, breathing those things in. It's serious. And just as much as it's serious for your people in uniform out there working daily, weekly, monthly on top of that, it's the same level of seriousness for our people that have that discharge to them. So the point of the conversation I just want to have for a couple minutes, you guys are a new team coming in. What do you feel like we can do to protect my people on the East Coast that get that dumped on them when we don't receive any benefits? The people on the West Coast that get that dumped on them, even though they want a minimum level of water flowing to them because they have a natural connection, we have an unnatural connection. And your people that have to sit on top of this and work every day. What can we do to work on this?
Congressman Mass, thank you for being on top of this issue. You have helped me as I've gotten up to speed on this issue. I've been down to Lake Okeechobee already. You've been a tireless advocate for your constituents along the St. Lucie River. The Corps of Engineers, under General Graham's leadership, has already taken action to update the water control manual of Lake Okeechobee to ensure that we're not having unnecessary discharges into the St. Lucie River or the Caloosahatchee River. You've been at the forefront of making that happen. There's still more that we can do to ensure that we provide for the Everglades Restoration Project, and we provide for flood control throughout Central and South Florida without negatively affecting your constituents. And so I look forward to working on this with you. You've been an incredible advocate for the interest of your constituents.
Look forward to working with you also. General, anything to add?
One piece I'd add, Congressman Mast, I know you've been a great supporter of this, is research and development that we can do when the harmful algal blooms erupt, that we have a tool to combat that. South Florida Water Management District has some pretty good tools that we've used. We're going to continue that research and development. But at the end of the day, the root cause of this is the nutrients that are causing this to begin with. I know we're working hand in glove with the state of Florida to improve that.
Yeah, and the water quality standards that I started to speak about, those are related to nutrients. That's not even related to, are we moving toxic pollutants like microcystin that the EPA says, hey, if you're a human being, don't come in contact with this at 8 parts per billion, much less 800 parts per billion, right? So I hope there's a place that we can work together to right-size that there are not different water quality standards for water that goes south than the water that comes to these epicenters of people across the state. It doesn't make sense. I'm sure you could agree, General. It wouldn't make sense to have a water quality standard for the water that goes to one housing development, Normandy at Fort Bragg, then goes to a different housing development at somewhere else on Fort Bragg. It wouldn't make any sense. That's basically what we have going on with Lake Okeechobee, and it's those inputs of those nutrients that allow our coastal estuaries that are otherwise Bahama blue to be turned into something that looks like your uniforms, which are great uniforms, but it's not how we want our water to look. And so in that, my time's about expired. I look forward to working with both of you.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Ms. Friedman for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Telle, my condolences on your loss. I don't need to tell anyone here today how important the WRDA-funded projects are, and we've heard about a lot of them today. And I wanted to highlight the need to continue to invest in water resource projects that reduce flood and storm damage, support water supply and drought resiliency, and restore ecosystems by focusing on a very important project in my district. We have a project that was authorized under the most recent WRDA bill, the LA River Restoration Project. And if you're listening to this, you might think you don't know the LA River, but you do, because you saw Greece and you saw the cars racing in what may have looked like a giant drainage ditch, but that's actually the LA River, which in recent years has really captured the imagination of the public as we think about what that river could be to Los Angeles. In fact, I toured this project recently with Ranking Member Larson, and he was amazed at what's already been accomplished and how many people midweek are using the bike paths that now go along a lot of the river, and talking to him about the parks that are going to be created and the areas, some of which are fairly blighted around the LA River, but looking forward to a complete economic revitalization as we reclaim this amenity. As you know, this project is a major investment that requires close collaboration between the City of LA and the Corps. And you've been working, the Corps has been working with LA for a number of years on the LA River. Now, it's my understanding that the LA River Ecosystem Restoration Project will require a Section 902 adjustment, along with a post-authorization change report, since project costs have naturally increased. Congressional authorization via WRDA is needed to increase authorization of appropriations for this project, which has been undergoing for a number of years. In order to increase authorization of appropriations, a complete packer is needed, and it's my understanding that the current targeted date for completion of this packer is July of 2026. My constituents are relying on this project being completed, and to be clear, this project does go through part of my district. And I'm worried that any delay in completion of the packer won't allow the committee to complete the review in time for WRDA in 2026, leaving our taxpayers to pick up the tab at a time when we're already overburdened because of the LA fires nearby in the county. So I don't know which of you wants to answer this question, but my question is what we can do to speed up completion of the packer process to ensure that it's completed in time for the committee to consider ahead of next year's WRDA, and how can I be helpful in that process?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And I will just say before I turn it over to General Graham, Los Angeles is one of America's great cities, and it's going to be on the world stage soon. It's important that the Corps of Engineers do what it can to support the citizens of Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles area, including with the LA River, which is an important part of that ecosystem. So I look forward to working with you and learning more about this project and hopefully getting out to LA very soon. General Graham?
And we are committed to deliver that packer to this committee in time for WRDA 26. The cutoff point I usually set for the districts is the end of May, because never know when the next WRDA might get put together. So I'm a little concerned that the district right now plans to finish that in July, and we're working with the district to see, one, to make sure that we maintain it on track to deliver it by July, but I'd like to see it moved towards the end of May. And that right now is our goal. We're also working collaboratively with the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Works for the entire system. This committee has authorized some deauthorization or transfer of some of the features of the entire LA County drainage district, and there's no better partner we have than the LA County DPW and Mark Pistrella. So we're absolutely committed to continue to work collaboratively with them to make sure that that system provides the tremendous protection to your citizens.
Thank you, and we have heard that there's been good coordination, and I really appreciate that. And along with the LA River project, there's several bridges that are going to be built because we've got parks like Griffith Park and Elysian Park, where right now it's very hard for people on the other side of the river to access those amenities, and these are some park-poor areas. And I know that they've been working closely with the Corps on making sure that they can expedite or move the approvals of those bridges through. But Mr. Telle, I would love for you to come to Los Angeles. I would love to walk you through some of this project area and show you how it's going to take what's already a great city, but really move it up to the next level. And this is a major piece of infrastructure for Los Angeles to help with flood control, but also bring a lot more recreation to Los Angeles. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back and recognize Mr. Onder for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses today. Back home in my district in Missouri, I hear the same concerns time and again from farmers and river communities, local officials. They depend on reliable levees, timely dredging, and flood protection to keep their families, their lands, and their neighborhoods safe. Yet too often we see these projects bogged down by multi-year studies, by shifting regulatory definitions and ballooning costs. But the floodwaters don't wait for Washington's bureaucracy. A good example is the Lower Missouri River Basin Flood Risk and Resiliency Study. It was authorized under WRDA, Yet the interim report wasn't expected until December 2023, and its final completion is not scheduled until March of 2027. This means the region won't experience tangible improvement until nearly 8 years after authorization. In the meantime, the rivers may overtop flawed levees, and my constituents pay the price in anxiety, risk, and economic damage. That is why today's hearing is so important, translating WRDA mandates into timely action, minimizing bureaucratic drag, restoring discipline and accountability to protect local communities. Despite Congress's clear direction, bureaucracy continues to slow things down, and I'd like to explore opportunities to make a difference here. Secretary Telle, the lower Mississippi River Basin Flood and Risk and Resiliency Study highlights how nearly 8 years can pass between authorization and real results. What specific reforms are you implementing to cut down on these study timelines and deliver protections to our communities faster?
Congressman, thank you for the question, and you're absolutely right. It's unacceptable that these projects take so long and cost so much. I think we have an opportunity under the leadership of Chairman Collins and President Trump to get after this program in a way that'll help the entire country, and especially areas like yours that have multiple big rivers all coming together. In terms of specific reforms, it's important to me that the United States Army Corps of Engineers is an organization that, from my office to the headquarters to the 9 divisions to the 39 districts, that we deliver policies and standards that you can count on, whether you're in the St. Louis district or the Kansas City district. And I think that that's something that General Graham and I have worked diligently on. Another one that I've mentioned already is looking at the project-based budgeting and what that means in terms of the incentives that it creates throughout the system. It's the United States Army Corps of Engineers is virtually the only agency within the federal government that budgets in this manner, and there are advantages to budgeting that way, but there are also potential perverse incentives in terms of delivering low cost and quickly. And so I look forward to working with you and with Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Wilson, to really explore how we can get serious about reducing schedule and cost on these projects. The American public can't wait for, like you said, for us here in Washington. And I think the benefit of harmony across the Corps of Engineers enterprise is perhaps we can reduce the wait times at the different levels of paperwork. And I know you agree with this, sir, which is that you expect the Corps of Engineers to build infrastructure, not build paperwork. And I'm committed to helping work through that with General Graham's partnership.
And you've committed to reducing regulatory burdens and aligning with the Sackett decision. When will we see a clear final definition of waters of the U.S. that removes uncertainty for landowners and farmers?
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned earlier, we've already published interim guidance that is implementing that decision now. And if one of the challenges is making sure that all of our districts all the way down the line understand that guidance and are implementing it. So if you hear of anybody who's not implementing the Sackett decision within your districts, please let us know. In the meantime, we are also expecting by the end of this year to publish a proposed rule that would provide permanent clarity in response to the Sackett decision and give much needed relief to Americans who are experiencing the regulatory burden of Washington.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Figures for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today and sitting through this grilling, as they call it. And Mr. Telle, I want to extend my condolences to you on your father. I lost my father, it'll be 29 years ago in a couple of days here, in 3 days. But I want to thank you for still being here and showing up despite that, because I know it's tough, man, so I appreciate that. I want to start by acknowledging that I have the proud honor of representing the area that will soon be the deepest port in the Gulf, from Panama, as I understand it, from the Panama Canal all the way up to Charleston, South Carolina. And that's the Port of Mobile. when they are done with the dredging here in a few weeks. We keep hearing the date get shifted and shifted, but nevertheless, they are fastly approaching completion of that. And the Corps, I want to thank you guys for your cooperation in getting us to that point. And I also want to extend an invitation to both of you to come down to celebrate our new distinction, which will incidentally be on what would have been my father's 78th birthday on October 13th. If either of you are available, we'd love to have you down in Mobile to celebrate that. It's a significant accomplishment for a lot of parties involved, and we're really looking forward to the impact that that's going to have in the future. That being said, 24% funding cuts makes it tough to ensure that we are doing what we need to do to keep that port in a position that's not like my colleague from Georgia was mentioning earlier and having issues with the regular maintenance dredging. And so can you guys discuss what impact the budget proposal would have on your ability to be able to sufficiently perform the maintenance dredging that's necessary to keep the Port of Mobile open at its new depth?
Congressman, thank you for your advocacy for that important project. And I hope I'm not giving away too much about my schedule here, but I do plan to be in Mobile and Baldwin counties on the 14th of October. So we'll see about the 13th.
Yeah, get over on 30. We're not worried about Baldwin County. That's Barrymore.
Okay.
Yes,
sir. Look, General Graham and I are committed to ensure that we perform critical maintenance of our dams and our ports, critical ports like the Port of Mobile, with the resources contained within the President's budget request. And so we're working hard to make sure that happens. It's, as I've said multiple times during this hearing, our ability to compete in the 21st century is dependent on our ability to have port facilities that allow us to open up our country, our coastal areas, and our inland areas to global commerce. Right. And dredging and maintenance is part of that. And so you have my commitment that we're going to do everything we can to maintain our ports, keep our channels dredged, and open America and important places like Mobile to the rest of the world.
Well, I appreciate that. I also encourage you to come down and visit it because I'm pretty sure we have the newest Army Corps of Engineers facility in the nation. So you should also take a look at that. And I've had the privilege to meet the newly installed Colonel Kelsey Shaw. I have full confidence in his ability. Very impressive guy, alumni of Tuskegee University, which is also in the district, and so looking forward to working with him over the next several years. Beneficial use of the dredging material is a huge deal back home in Mobile. As you know, your predecessor issued a directive, I think, requiring 70% of dredging sediment to be used for beneficial use. This is something we want to ensure can continue to happen. These are sentiments that are echoed by my colleague over in the Senate, Senator Britt. This is a very important issue to make sure that we're exploring all beneficial use options for the sediment dredging material for wildlife reasons, for recreation reasons, and just general, good housekeeping reasons. And so do we still have that commitment from you guys to enforce that threshold and do everything you can to ensure that the sediment that's being dredged out of these ports is being prioritized for beneficial use?
Congressman, I will say without commenting on the 70% threshold, as I'll need to look into that, but I will just say that when we can use dredged material for a beneficial use, whether it's restoring a shoreline, or restoring barrier islands, or renourishing beaches, that's a win-win for the taxpayers and for the ecosystem. And so, in general, I would just say that the use of beneficial use material, as we call it, within the Corps of Engineers is important. And you're correct that Senator Britt has been advocating to me the importance of ensuring that the dredge material from the Mobile Port Channel is used in a way that is a benefit to Alabamians.
Well, thank you. Well, we look forward to seeing you guys on October 13th, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and I recognize Mr. Petronas for 5 minutes for questions.
Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for being here. My district is Northwest Florida. Secretary, you know where that is. You know where the Gulf of America is. Even though I'm the lowest ranking member, I've been in government a long time, and I've dealt with the Corps on a lot of issues, some of which are totally revolutionary. Can't believe we're able to make some of these transformational permits in the case of a real significant out-of-the-box thinking project that is exist in the state of Florida. And then sometimes I scratch my head about why in the hell is the Corps even looking into what I'm asking y'all to look into. And I'm not saying this is something that you're going to fix today, but I'm a big believer in going through the chain of command. I am a rule follower. You know what? And so now I'm going to look past you. I'm going to look at your staff, because I'm not going to ask for the Secretary or the General's phone number in this public meeting. But I'll be happy to give you mine. But I'm looking at your staff behind you, and I'm going to ask you in the next 30 days to come schedule an appointment with my office so we can go through some permits. I'm not going to ask you for a single dollar. I'm not going to ask you to spend a single bit of your resources that are so important to everything else you've already heard today. But I'm going to tell you that, the most precious thing that we have in life is time. I would love to have more time with my family. I would love to have more time enjoying life. But when things get clogged up in your system, that is eliminating precious access to time and resource that I'm sorry, I just can't tolerate. I'm going to give you 2 examples of issues. I'm not going to use names. We'll talk about this when your team shows up. But I have got a land swap happening that has been waiting for years to take place. Every time a land swap takes place, we're going to have to get a new appraisal. After we get a new appraisal, appraisals are perishable. They're only valuable for so long a period of time. This particular land swap has been approved at the district and Atlanta immediate headquarters and DC headquarters, yet it cannot get approved, and the appraisals continue to get neglected, and the appraisals have to get started over again. So we'll go into details of that when your staff shows up. The second, again, scratching my head. I don't know why I'm even talking to y'all about this, okay? I've got a constituent who's been waiting on more than a year to put in a floating dock at an existing marina. Why is this even an interest of the Corps of Engineers? It just scratches my head. Again, I think one of the greatest things we've got is the Gulf of America. I want people to enjoy it. I want people to spend money, enjoy it with their families. I want those tourists to come down and enjoy Northwest Florida. But why does the Corps even care about an 80-foot floating dock? Makes no sense. What do we got? Maybe 2 pylons in the water, maybe 4 pylons on an 80-foot, maybe 6 pylons, okay? DEP is approved at Florida Department of Environmental Protection to totally approve it. They care about the seagrasses. They do all that. Why does the Corps care? Again, these are things that y'all have got bigger fish to fry. Why are we even talking to you about this? And why couldn't it be off your desk already? So, I want to work on these things. Like I said, I want to praise you. I want to support you. I want to give you your resources. But also, I want to get these problem children that are buried in somebody's desk, because I know you get overwhelmed with some of the type of things that shouldn't be there, just like an 80-foot floating dock. And I just want to make your life a little bit easier, I told people when I was back in Florida, I said, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is the greatest freedom agency in the state of Florida. It can take your freedom away, or it can give you freedom. And y'all are in a very similar category. I had somebody the other day that I was talking to in Jacksonville, and they were going through some permitting on some dredging. I said, do you want me to reach out to the Corps for you? No. We've got a great relationship with the Corps. They treat us great. We're very happy. Again, where praise is due, I'm going to share it with you. And it was great hearing that. But then I'll hear other folks just like these here that make no sense whatsoever, And again, I'm not thinking this is somebody's personal agenda, but you know what? I've seen people at DEP that just, I think it's their mission in life just to make sure that nothing ever gets out of their office. And unfortunately, we're humans, and sometimes we just have those agendas sometimes embedded in us. So I don't really have a lot to ask you other than thank you for your service. I look forward to working with you, and I hope to be an advocate for the good that y'all do. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Ms. Poe for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me begin by saying that I absolutely want to thank Assistant Secretary Telle and Lieutenant General Graham for joining us today. Thank you so very much, gentlemen. Last week I met with mayors from across my district. The issue I heard over and over again was concern with the water management. So I wanted to just address something. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has been a lifeline for our district, which faces repeated severe flooding. I am grateful to the Army Corps for recently meeting with our local officials in Clifton to discuss a critical mitigation project study to address the chronic flooding from the Third River. I want to work with each and every one of you, but I want to work with you to ensure that this project gets the resources that it needs under the Continuing Authorities Program to advance to the next phase. I also look forward to reviewing the results of the the New York Harbor and tributaries coastal storm risk management study to better prevent devastating losses from hurricanes. Information like this is sorely needed to support areas like my district that are at risk from superstorms. In our district, the lower Saddle River Basin has faced repeated flooding for decades, impacting at least 8 cities and towns, including Lodi, Garfield, and in response, Congress authorized the Lower Saddle River Flood Project, Protection Project, ladies and gentlemen, back in 1986. Now that's almost 40 years, 39 plus, literally 40 years ago. However, the basin contains known contaminated sites, areas with heavy pollution. The presence of these sites means that if the Army Corps begins construction, they risk the legal and financial consequences, as well as decades of bureaucratic inaction and stalled progress. So to the both of you, please help me to understand, and I understand that the Army Corps has been involved with contamination radiation at other projects. How does that presence of that contamination impact the Corps' ability to complete necessary work at this particular site?
Congresswoman, thank you for bringing these issues to our attention. One of the things that I didn't fully appreciate until I was confirmed for this role was the work that General Graham's team does fall into 2 categories that you're talking about. If it's a former defense site, it falls under the FUDS program, which is under the military program side of General Graham's work. And if it's a former Department of Energy site, it falls under the FUSRAP program, which is under the Civil Works portion of General Graham's portfolio. And so I will defer to him to make sure we fully understand, in the case of your area, which it is.
Lieutenant General, let me just ask, though, as you're thinking about answering the question, I specifically would like to have you speak with the contaminated areas of the lower Saddle River and what steps are needed to get that project off the ground. Since we've been literally waiting, 40 years, I don't want to have to wait another 40 years.
Representative Poe, thank you again for that question, and it is a big challenge on many of our waterways. They were used as open sewers and just disposal areas in the past, and we do a lot of cleanup work, as the Assistant Secretary mentioned. We also do some cleanup work under the Environmental Protection Agency, and I think probably in this case, and we'll check on the specifics, we're working to find out who put that contamination in there and hold them responsible. Understand that that's usually where this gets stuck, is finding that out. And then where that's not feasible, then it'll go into the EPA program, and oftentimes they will hire us. They'll bring us in to then do the actual engineering and cleanup work. So, and we'll get back with you on the exact status of this particular issue, and we'll collaboratively work with you to see if we can get a path forward. Word 86 was a long time ago.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know my time is up, so I really appreciate it. I yield back. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. I now recognize Mr. Hurd for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, good morning. Thanks for being here. I represent Colorado's 3rd District, which is Colorado's a headwater state. We're the only state in the continental U.S. where all the water flows out. And the Colorado River Basin is an important issue, not only for the constituents that I represent, but also for the 40 million plus citizens who live in the Colorado River Basin, and for our down basin cousins as well. This year has been a very difficult year in Colorado when it comes to snowpack and moisture, and I'm concerned what that means for us in Colorado as well as our fellow Colorado River Basin states. I understand that Section 208 of WRDA directs the Secretary of the Army to assess potential applications of forecast-informed reservoir operations in the Colorado River Basin, and provided there's sufficient resources to do so, the Secretary can facilitate smarter water storage and release programs. Mr. Telle and General Graham, can you speak about the implementation of this provision, potential implementation of this provision, and have there been any lessons learned from forecast-informed reservoir operations in the past in terms of how we can be better prepared and more resilient when it comes to drought-related challenges?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And you and other of your colleagues have pointed out the importance of forecast-informed reservoir operations and other technology-enabled methods to make the best use of scarce water resources. The Colorado River winds up being the source of water for a great portion of the southwestern United States. And it's, I think the disputes between the states over the Colorado River water supply are historic and challenging. And so that speaks to the importance of using every tool in our toolkit to better optimize the way that we manage the system. And General Graham is on top of that. And I would defer to him in terms of implementation of Section 208 as it relates to this specific basin.
Representative Hurd, taking the lessons we're learning right now on forecast-informed reservoir operations, putting those into practice with the water control manuals out in California and Lake Mendocino, we certainly want to continue to deploy that technology throughout the country. You say, well, maybe that's only for California. We can see the atmospheric rivers coming. When I talked to some of the scientists and engineers before they even were talking, places like New Jersey might be capable for it. And as the Assistant Secretary has said, his guidance is to make sure we're wringing every ounce of value we can from these facilities. We just operate them differently. We don't have to build anything new. So our commitment to you is to take a look at all of the watersheds, the headwaters of the Rio Grande, the Arkansas River, and the Colorado, to make sure that if this technology or this, I'll call it a technology, this different way of looking at managing water is applicable here, we absolutely want to apply it.
General, can you think of any additional resources or authority that would help accelerate adoption of forecast-informed reservoir operations?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Can you think of any additional resources or authorities that would help accelerate adoption of forecast-informed reservoir operations? Can we do it better? How can we do it better?
Scaling up from, we're kind of, as we branch out from getting it started in California, we want to continue to train our staff and to bring in additional staff. So I think it will start to expand out our capabilities. We're also working not only with our researchers at our Engineering Research and Development Center, but also to bring in private sector organizations, college and universities, so that we can expand this capacity.
Okay, thank you. Were you going to say something, Mr. Telle?
Sir, I was just going to mention that one of the ways that we can achieve the scale that General Graham references and that you're seeking is by making sure that we're taking district employees who have expertise and experience in these new methods of controlling water reserves and making them available to other districts and regions throughout the country, potentially making sure that we take advantage of our expertise across the country and potentially creating centers of excellence, which is something that General Graham and his team have done a really good job of to eliminate duplication within the districts and focus expertise in one or two areas in the country. And so I would just say, as forecast-informed reservoir operations becomes more and more prevalent, we look forward to working with you on helping stand up that capability.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I see my time's almost expired. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield the remainder of my time back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Ms. Gillen for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to appear before us today, and thank you for your service to our country. I represent New York's 4th Congressional District, which is contained entirely on the south shore of Nassau County on Long Island. We are the home to many coastal communities and many beautiful beaches. In my prior role in local government, had the privilege of working with the Army Corps to ameliorate some of the effects that were still lingering from Superstorm Sandy, which was devastating to my district, and other hurricanes that happened after that, and really worked productively with you. So I thank you for that. So my district contains two federal navigation channels, the East Rockaway Inlet and the Jones Beach Inlet. And due to shoaling, the depths and navigable channel in these waterways are often reduced, which poses a real threat to safety, especially during rough weather. And I've heard from many in our maritime trades and recreational boaters as well about the need to regularly maintain and dredge these two inlets to keep boaters safe. So I guess, Lieutenant General Graham, could the Army Corps, and perhaps your staff can follow up with me, provide my office with an update on plans to conduct dredging at both East Rockaway and the Jones Beach Inlet? East Rockaway was last dredged in 2022, and Jones was last dredged in 2023. Thank you. I'm also asking if Congress can do something to help New York reduce the delays and increase the frequency of maintenance dredging on inlets such as this, and perhaps look at ways, particularly with respect to the East Rockaway and the Jones Beach Inlet. If we could look at ways where we might be able to do some studies, perhaps working with our local governments on alternate locations to place some of the dredging material so this problem doesn't keep occurring every year. Do you think that's something that we could look at together?
Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you. So again, I mentioned working together with the Army Corps on addressing erosion after Superstorm Sandy, and the beautiful beaches that serve our community are not only a great source of recreation, they're a great source of natural beauty, they're a really important resource for my district. But erosion remains a continuous problem with these beaches, having to rebuild our dunes, having to restore our shoreline. So there is new technology available, gentlemen. They're reusable plastic grids, which are also known as cliff stabilizers, and they can be driven into sand to protect against beach and dune erosion. So, Assistant Secretary Telle, would you and the Army Corps be willing to work with my office and the committee to explore potential applications of this technology to prevent future coastal erosion and also reduce the burden that you might have to come back and replenish those beaches?
Congresswoman, thank you. And yes, there are technologies out there that help reduce beach erosion. Some of them are already deployed in different parts of our country. General Graham recently mentioned the Engineer Research and Development Center, which is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers R&D component, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with the appropriate folks there to see what this technology might be able to provide to the nation in terms of reducing beach erosion.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else, Lieutenant General?
And we're always looking, as the Assistant Secretary said, to innovate as a tremendous amount of funds, but the amount of funds we have for the coastal storm risk management system is certainly insufficient to deal with the needs that are out there. So stretching every dollar, doing more with this is certainly our commitment to you. And so if there's new technologies, always happy to spend some time up on Long Island.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We welcome you anytime to come visit, and my office will follow up with you about the 2 points we discussed. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. I now recognize Mr. Burleson for 5 minutes to ask questions.
Thank you, Secretary Telle. Thank you, General Graham, for being here today. Really appreciate your service to our country, and I'm sorry to hear about your loss of your father. I'm sure he was very proud to see you become Secretary. And I want to say thank you for coming to my office last week and visiting. I greatly appreciated that meeting, and it gave me hope that we'll be able to resolve some issues together. As you know, Table Rock Lake, which is located in my district, is more than just a body of water. It is a cherished landmark of Southwest Missouri, and it's really a crown jewel for the whole state. Some property owners, through no fault of their own, as we discussed, have structural encroachments, much of which happened when surveys were confused or plot lines were confused. Many of these individuals didn't build the structure; they just bought a home and their retirement dream home, right? only to find out that there's an encroachment that requires them to remove their septic tank or some structure, or sometimes a retaining wall that's holding back dirt from flooding their home. And so I want to just kind of get an update from you after that meeting, any follow-up that you had.
Congressman Burleson, thank you for being an advocate for your constituents on this issue. It's one that my office and General Graham's operation are tracking very closely. We let you know last week that we had paused all enforcement actions on residents around Table Rock Lake, which, as I conveyed to you last week, I understand personally the lake culture that exists throughout much of Middle America, including in places like your district. You and I talked about visiting Southwest Missouri, which I intend to do, and the Little Rock District as well. And so what I will say to those constituents of yours who you've advocated for around Table Rock Lake is that we are working every single day to deliver a common sense and fair outcome to this solution. There's no place for the government to inappropriately infringe on individual property rights, but there is a flood control mission there, and so we're going to have to balance the flood control mission against the property issues. But I see no reason that we shouldn't be able to solve this in a fair and common sense way that produces a good outcome for your constituents.
Thank you. After our meeting, a couple of days later, I got a call from my Aunt Bonnie, who lives on Table Rock Lake, and she said, the Corps has gone crazy. They are telling us that we have to remove our flower pots off of our docks and that they're not allowing pizza to be delivered. I didn't realize that pizza could be delivered by boat on Table Rock Lake, but that's pretty awesome. And so I get those kinds of phone calls all the time. And so one has to scratch your head and wonder, don't they have something better to be focused on than the flower pots, that my Aunt Bonnie has on her docks, right?
Congressman, I hope that that's not true. If it is, I know General Graham and I will look into it with the Little Rock District and see what we can do to make sure that we're being reasonable in enforcing our mission of flood control in that area.
Thank you. And I want you guys to mark on your calendar November the 9th. Each year, we have a veterans fishing charity event. We provide free fishing guides to area veterans. It is one of the most beautiful, patriotic American things you could ever see, and on the most beautiful lake in the country. And I would love for you both to attend November 9th if you could make that available.
Thank you, Congressman.
And then I have a last question. General Graham, and this is a strange question, I know, but in an interview on Tucker Carlson, former Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Catherine Austin Fitts, reported that there were secret underground military bases and bunkers that were built. She said that the United States government has diverted $21 trillion to build a network of underground military bases, a vast, almost like city-type structure with transportation in between. Are you aware of that claim that she made? And is there any validity to it? You can't comment.
Congressman, I don't have any knowledge of any of that.
Okay, all right, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady, Mrs. Sykes, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I have quite a bit to get through, but I also want to join my colleagues in expressing my condolences, and thank you for being here to share. Water is certainly a very important topic all across this country, and my district is no different. So I want to direct your attention, I should say, to Ohio's 13th congressional district, particularly the city of Massillon. The Corps work has been benefiting a lot of my communities, but Massillon in particular needs and wants some help from the Corps. Last term, the Corps wrapped up a $22 million levee safety investment at the dam there that will help keep our community safe from flooding for years to come, so thank you for that. When we discovered that the Corps couldn't help us fund a sluice gate replacement for their dam, we were a little concerned. Part of this was because we were told a unique contract where the city and the Corps split the operations and maintenance funding. But it was my understanding that WRDA in 2022 gave you the authority to do this. We used as one of our CPF funding projects, my first term, this project to help the city cover this gap, but it was rejected. And the last time we had a hearing in this committee in 2023, I asked about guidance related to this new authority in Section 8152. As of today, my office has since received this guidance, so we just got this today. So I know that was not your administration, but now we have it. But however, it doesn't appear that on the core website, and the individuals in my community were not communicated with. So Secretary Telle, while we work with Massillon to work on this rehabilitation, could you share how the Corps intends to share in new implementation guidance with regional offices and relevant project partners, excuse me?
Congressman Sykes, thank you for the question. We take very seriously the Water Resources Development Act enacted by Congress and signed by the President, and following that law. Of the approximately 180 provisions contained in the 2024 WRDA, just to give you an idea of the process that we go through as we implement it, some of those...
Mr. Secretary, this was from 2022, not...
I'm sorry. Apologies for that. In general, when we receive WRDAs, the way that we implement them, some of the provisions are simple enough that they can be implemented right away, and they sort of speak for themselves. Others of them are very complex, and as you mentioned, require implementation guidance. It's a minority of the provisions that require that type of guidance, but that type of guidance means that we have to get in a much more detailed level of specificity in how we're going to carry out the laws that Congress passes.
I hate to interrupt you, but I have a couple more, but can I just count on your support to work with the city of Massillon to figure this out? We are now 3 years into this, and they could use that help. There are over 22 gates they need to deal with.
Absolutely,
and they have to do 2 at a time. Thank you so much. And I do, since you were talking about WRDA, I think many of my colleagues were disappointed with the appropriation of WRDA for the 2024 that you just referenced. We have significant authorities, large authorities to deal with so many projects in our area across the district from Akron, Canton, New Franklin, Barberton, Fairlawn, and more. But what do you do when you're not appropriated the money, but these projects still need to be done? I know you don't appropriate funds, that's not your role, that is ours. But what do you do with the authorities that are not funded?
Congresswoman, we keep very close track of all projects that have been authorized by Congress, all projects that could be authorized by Congress, and all projects for which appropriations have been received from Congress. We keep very close track of all that. As I mentioned earlier in this hearing, there's some $78 billion worth of projects that have been authorized, but we haven't received appropriations. There's some $44 billion worth of projects that we've received appropriations for where that funding has not been expended. And all this is to say the demand for the Corps of Engineers services is greater than the supply. And if we're going to get after the challenges that exist in your state and exist throughout the country, this is a massive undertaking. We've got to be more efficient and smarter. It's not just about more resources. We have to deliver more with the resources that we have if we're ever going to get at this challenge. And General Graham and I are working together every day to try to ensure that that happens.
Thank you. I appreciate you talking about efficiency and working smarter. I do want to thank you. Although not funded, you've been working with the city of Cuyahoga Falls on giving some technical assistance on removing the Gorge Dam, which will be incredible. I actually texted the mayor because he had some interesting comments, and he said that the removal of those dams opened up about 1 to 2 miles of challenging whitewater for the experienced kayaker, and then when it's removed, it will open up 2 to 2.5 miles of whitewater, which is not available anywhere east of the Mississippi. Going back to your conversation on efficiency, last month the Secret Service directed the Army Corps to change the outflow of Ohio Cedar Creek Lake to accommodate a kayaking trip for the Vice President, J.D. Vance. In terms of efficiency, it seems like this was probably not an efficient use of resources. So I do want to ask you, how much did this cost? And if you are concerned about efficiency, please explain how this action contributed towards the safety and efficiency of the Army Corps to have a escapade, if you will, out on kayaking for the Vice President.
Ma'am, thank you for the question. The water level in the lower Miami River was requested to be increased by the Secret Service, who was on a mission to protect the vice president. Within the past year, in 2024, we experienced 2 attempts on the president's life. It is when the state of Ohio contacted the Louisville district and asked them to raise the water level in that tributary to accommodate the Secret Service's patrol boats. They did so to ensure that the vice president wasn't under threat. And none of the operations to increase the level of that river did anything to affect. It was all within the water control manual, and none of it did anything to affect the operations of that river. All those downstream of it were notified promptly, and it was a successful use of our water resources to ensure that we protect a Secret Service protectee.
Thank you, sir. And I'm not sure about the time because I've seen a lot of different numbers here, but Mr. Chair, I appreciate your answer for that. It is not satisfactory in my estimation, and certainly we do want to keep the vice president safe as well as all of our elected officials.
Gentlelady's time
But
is
this was
up.
not something that's made eligible for everyone, and I just did not
The
hear that.
chair-
From the Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Mr. Babin for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. I want to thank Lieutenant General Graham and Assistant Secretary Telle for being here today. It's good to see both of you. As you know, our district in Texas has several critical projects underway along the Texas coast, including the Cedar Bayou channel improvement, the Houston Ship Channel expansion, and the Ike Dike. These projects are essentially keeping America moving forward and strengthening our economy. And the Gulf of America serves as a central hub for energy, trade, and commerce, driving growth not only for our region, but for the entire nation. And Mr. Telle, we discussed these projects at our meeting last week. Thank you so very much for being there. I really appreciate your cooperation with me and my office in completing them, especially during hurricane season, which we are now in. And preparedness and timely action are more important than ever before. Will you direct your team to provide my staff with status updates on these projects and the other core projects in our district?
Congressman Babin, the answer is yes. This is one of the most complex series of projects in the United States of America right now. It's a large system of systems in an area that's vulnerable to natural disaster, as you know very well. And so
Yes, sir.
It's important that we keep on track and that we keep you updated.
Absolutely. I have a couple of more questions for you. Building on your plans to revamp the Civil Works Division, how do you plan to streamline communication between USACE headquarters and the individual districts to make sure that members of Congress and local stakeholders are kept up to date on project developments?
Congressman, we're very fortunate that the United States Army Corps of Engineers has 39 districts across our country, and those 39 districts generally have positive relationships with the locally elected officials and members of Congress. What we could use some work on is making sure that the communication from the district level to the division level to General Graham's level to my level and down, up and down that chain is more efficient and is more responsive to the needs of the stakeholders like you. So we're going to work together on that.
Absolutely. I thank you both very much. And one more question, Mr. Telle. Under its Flood Control and Coastal Emergencies Authority, or FCCE, the Corps provides much-needed post-disaster assistance to impacted communities, supports recoveries, and requires infrastructure that the Corps is responsible for maintaining. Has the Corps conducted any analysis of what resources and authorities are needed to respond to future disasters?
Congressman, thank you for the question, and thank you for recognizing our organization's contribution to disaster response here in the United States. We are part of the disaster response framework, and we activate primarily on debris removal, but other activities when called upon by the interagency. And I would just say I would like to express how proud I am to be affiliated with this organization, which was one of the first and most aggressive organizations when Hurricane Helene devastated western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and other parts of Appalachia. Recently with the Los Angeles wildfires and with the Juneau glacial outburst flooding. These are places that, in many cases, the Corps of Engineers doesn't get the credit it deserves, but our U.S. Army is on the ground helping Americans every single day as disasters approach, and I'm very proud of that.
Amen. Thank you so very much. Appreciate and proud of USACE and both of your of your services to to our country. One last one. Do you believe, Mr. Telle, that the Corps' current FCCE authorities are sufficient? And if not, Telle, please explain.
Congressman Babin, thank you for that question. I'll get back to you if there are any authorities that I feel like we don't have, but currently our FCCE authorities do allow us to do the minimal things we need to do to prepare and get in place and provide mitigation against looming disasters. In cases where FCCE is not sufficient, we have a very well-oiled relationship with the interagency that allows us to activate and provide the United States Army Corps of Engineers expertise and human capital to respond to disasters using funding and authorities derived from other agencies.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, and that would conclude my questioning. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Stanton for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing and on the Water Resources Development Act, WRDA, and for the Army Corps and Civil Works for coming to testify today. And I was informed, Assistant Secretary Telle, about the passing of your father last week. I want to pass on my sympathies, and thank you for being here. It's got to be very tough. A major component of recent WRDA bills has been authorization for environmental infrastructure assistance, the EI program, including in my state of Arizona. Section 595 funds for Arizona were originally put in a statute in 2020, and last year's WRDA of 2024, this very committee increased authorizing by $50 million up to $250 million total. That's more money going back into local communities to meet their infrastructure needs and protect water supplies. In Arizona, nearly $50 million of EI funds have been delivered to projects to help our communities and tribal nations use wastewater more efficiently, recharge area aquifers, and improve water delivery and conservation through new wells and pipelines. We anticipate more projects to be funded in 2026. Just this week, we will be celebrating the first groundbreaking in Arizona with the Pascoyaqui Tribes project. This key milestone will bring in non-potable water for irrigation of landscaping, parks, and fields, and leave potable water for use by tribal members in the future. But there's more work to be done. Building resilient water infrastructure is paramount in Arizona. No exaggeration to say that the future of Arizona and the entire American Southwest depends on how we respond to the historic drought in the Colorado River Basin. Arizona's communities are doing their part to conserve water, but we are going to need the federal government to do more to step in. Arizona will have more than $15 billion in drinking water and wastewater infrastructure needs over the next 2 decades, according to the Arizona Society of Civil Engineers. This is any range of projects, including Goodyear's soil aquifer treatment site to increase recharge capacity, or Santa Cruz County's reconstruction of the Nogales wash line channel. Right now, there is $9 million in additional environmental infrastructure funding for projects that would be chosen by the administration in the energy and water bill that passed the House. Pending that we keep some sort of funding upon passage of a government funding bill, Lieutenant General Graham, my question is this: how will the Army Corps prioritize these environmental infrastructure dollars?
Representative Stanton, thank you. First off, I think the LA District has vastly improved its coordination with your constituents, with your office, and so I'd be glad to get your thoughts on that, but my report is...
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm delighted that we're on the same sheet there. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. The district is committed to delivering for the state, and we will continue to make our best technical recommendation on these, as you laid out, very valuable projects.
Infrastructure takes time, as we all know, and there are ways to move the needle faster. Recently, the city of Flagstaff was not able to wait for EI money. It was allocated through the Corps IIJA work plan in 2022 due to the length of time to complete the environmental review for simple flood mitigation project. As a result, the city will now construct a project with its own funding, obviously taken away from other projects that they could do in that important city. We've also heard from the city of Buckeye and west of Phoenix, who received $2.25 million to update the wastewater treatment process at its central wastewater reclamation facility, experiencing a delay due to environmental assessment. Moreover, when these EI projects broadly happen at an existing facility, it would move things along faster if CE is allowed. So Lieutenant General Graham, my final question is this. What is the Army Corps doing to expand the use of CE on EI projects, categorical exclusion obviously, to get them under construction more quickly? And are there other ways to streamline the process to get the water infrastructure projects built faster?
I think this is certainly where President Trump has asked us to go, which is to take a look at the environmental rules, to continue to streamline those, and if there are categorical exclusions, to use those. I think in this instance, as we're relooking the NEPA rules, we're working within the Department of Defense, and they have more categorical exclusions, so I think that will be an advantage of the Environmental Infrastructure Program.
Okay. Assistant Secretary, anything to add?
No, the general covered it, and which is there have been actions taken, significant actions to date during the Trump administration to reduce the burden of federal regulations without compromising our environmental quality. And so nationwide permits under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act is another one that we've talked about here, something that comes due in March, and we're committed to renewing those. Those are an important tool that actually provide for some 50,000 annual 404 permits, which is over half. And so that's a critical tool that provides transparency to the public and enables fast action when a member of the public seeks to take action.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you on that, and yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields. I now recognize Ms. King-Hines for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to sit in today, and thank you very much, Assistant Secretary Telle and General Graham, for being very gracious with your time today. So I represent the Northern Mariana Islands, and it's a chain of islands, and each of the islands have very different challenges. And I want to start, and I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to be able to have a conversation with you this morning to elevate some of the concerns with regards to the challenges that we are having. So I'm going to start off with the island of Saipan, which is our capital island. Our biggest challenge is shoreline erosion. So recently, we had a tropical storm sometime in July that exacerbated the issue. The wave action was so bad that it unearthed unexploded ordnance on the shoreline, which it consisted of landmines, hand grenades, and just different types of artillery. And this 4,000-foot stretch beach sits adjacent to a publicly owned, actually to the American Memorial Park. And, we're working to fix the issue, but obviously permitting and technical support is very much needed from the Army Corps. And in recent conversations, one of the challenges that has been raised is the request for technical support from the Corps has been denied. So I'm looking for the opportunity to be able to collaborate with you to figure out how to, provide that assistance to our community. In addition, we also continue to face challenges with sediment removal in our primary marina, where our boaters dock. Dredging there is very urgently needed, but the issue is delayed in permitting. We've been working with everybody to include the Seabees to figure out how to help and expedite that process. But the issue really is permitting, and getting the technical guidance from the Army Corps is an issue. Another issue that I want to raise, a couple of years ago, actually more than 10 years ago, we paid the Army Corps to do a study to see to figure out basically if the islands of Tinian and Rota could qualify for, could be eligible for the safe and subsistence, I think it's the remote and subsistent, Section 206, remote and subsistent harbors funding through WRDA. We spent a couple million on that study, only to find out that we weren't eligible because of Army Corps interpretation of specific language with regards to eligibility requirements. And I want to be able to, work with you to be able to figure out how do we get, especially the island of Rota, qualified. So as we all know, the ports, having viable ports is very critical to having an economy. Fortunately for the island of Tinian, we do have a lot of Department of Defense activities happening there, and so DOD is working to improve
the harbor and the breakwater there on the island of Tinian. But for the island of Rhoda, funding is very, it's very challenging, and it doesn't have the same activities there. And so I'm looking forward to be able to work with you. I just wanted to be here to elevate those issues. We will be following up with a letter shortly here, kind of outlining what I've just discussed. And I also want to take this opportunity to invite the two of you to the Mariana so that you can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, you absolutely have our commitment to work with you on those issues. Many of those I am tracking right now. Santa Maya, the entire region, is tremendously important, certainly, as you mentioned, to the Department of Defense and to the nation as a whole. Happy to take our general in the Pacific and send him out to meet with you as soon as possible. And then, if possible, I would like to also to have the opportunity to meet you out there. I mean, that's the importance of territory.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better way than just laying eyes on it, right? And so looking forward to that happening. Thank you so much.
And
Thank
since
you, Mr.
you
Chairman.
threw the gauntlet down on what the Seabees were doing, we're going to have to show up.
Yeah, for sure. I yield my time.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields. I now recognize Mr. Lamalfa for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to panelists for being here. And sorry I'm last second at the meeting here. I'm three committees at the same time doesn't help you do a great job sometimes. So anyway, and Assistant Secretary Telle, my understanding is mourning in your family there, so God bless you, and our hearts are with you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for soldiering through today. So, it's a business here. I'm appreciate the opportunity to speak with you a little bit earlier, and we, in Northern California, where I represent, it's the Sacramento District Office is primarily the one overseeing the operations in my district here. So, so question for both Assistant Secretary Telle and Lieutenant General Graham on in your roles, what can we do to help with the staffing situation that in the Sacramento district that seems to just put us so far behind on projects, because we have important things we're trying to get done that has to do with water supply and like that. What can we touch on to have the staff situation be able to work, move people around that maybe are less occupied and into a position where they can help move pretty important water projects and water-related issues?
Congressman LaMalfa, thank you for visiting with me last week, and thank you for the expertise you bring to the complicated conversation that is California water. I would just say that one of the things that General Graham and I are working on every day is to make sure we're optimizing the workforce across the districts. And we've done a lot of discussion here today about forecast-informed reservoir operations, which I know is important to you as it relates to the Shasta Dam, which is really the headwaters, you might say, for all of California's water, and important to the agricultural interests in your district. And so I would say that General Graham and I are committed to try to deliver expertise from across the enterprise to districts that are busy, from districts that may be less busy, and that have expertise for districts that may not. And in the case of the Sacramento district, I look forward to working with General Graham and with you to see what we may do to accelerate the update of some of the water control manuals in your district. Mm-hmm. As we've discussed here today, this is a low-cost way to utilize existing infrastructure and optimize water supply for the variety of purposes that's needed in places like California.
Thank you. Lieutenant General?
Representative Malfa, absolutely. Bringing all of the possible value we can out of those facilities and ones that we work in collaboration with, like the aforementioned Lake Shasta with Bureau of Reclamation and Oroville with the state of California. Absolutely. So delighted to see Lake Mendocino's water control manual will go into operation, and our ability to continue to take a look at those facilities, get the assessments done on whether or not the forecast-informed reservoir operations is applicable here, and then move that rapidly into an update to the water control manual. That's our pledge to you. is to
Thank
do
you.
that in an optimized and efficient way.
Given the size of Lake Shasta being 4.5 million acre feet and the largest project in the states and in federal purview there, and then the possibility of a dam raise there of another 600,000 acre feet combined with this work on the manuals, the FIRO, the Forecast Informed Reservation Operations, would be certainly make a lot of sense to me with instead of older manuals that because I believe as I was watching water flooding out Glenn County from releases in February or March this year, that with FIRO, just with that forecast ability to see what the weather's going to be for a few weeks at a time, perhaps offshore fronts and such, that we could have probably conserved a couple 100,000 more acre feet of water by adjusting that to the timeline for conservation. So we have that opportunity. Again, we have the raise itself that we need to be sure we can engineer out, move that along. And as we talked about too, the assessment of the Black Butte Lake there in Glenn County, which needs to finish a review on dam safety, but also incorporate it, hopefully at the same time. This is what we got an amendment built into legislation here recently on both those items, the FIRO and the Black Buttes, installing gates there that could raise the capacity safely just by having the ability to regulate the spillway there. So those are two very important projects tied in with two other study aspects, really four things simultaneously we need to get done and at pretty low cost, really, and enhance water supply. So we've seen in the west side of the valley there in the year 2022, the devastation by water supply, 250,000 acres of rice just left out, and drought is drought, but if we manage water and stretch it farther into upcoming years, then we will get a lot more yield. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the Subcommittee for Coast Guard, Mr. Ezell, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you guys for both being here today. Congratulations on your new job. Look forward to working with both of you in the future, and condolences to you about your father. Since I've been in the Congress, there hadn't been too many weeks that have gone by that I hadn't had some kind of call about the Army Corps of Engineers. It was kind of like when I was sheriff. Some deputy was always doing something that he wasn't supposed to, but I do get quite a few calls, various complaints, but I know that some of the main issues that we've dealt with and worked tirelessly to address the Bonnie Care spillway issue on the Mississippi River. I'm sure both of you are aware that the Mississippi River and its infrastructure are outdated in comparison to some of the technology that's available today. Levees, chemicals, runoff, drainage issues, outdated processes, and more, plague our management of the Mississippi, resulting in a dead zone nearly the size of Connecticut out there in the Gulf of America. We have to get together to find a solution that works for both Mississippi and Louisiana. That's just something we've got to do, and I look forward to working with both of you and the opportunity and speaking with you and getting this thing done. But General Graham, I've got a vital port in my district that's currently undergoing a dredging process. Given the time that's already elapsed, I'm hopeful that it will soon transition from a study to actually moving some mud. Can you provide me with an update on the dredge capacity report required by Section 8205 of WRDA 2022? When do you expect it to be available for public comment? It's almost been 3 years.
Thank you for that question, and that report is under administration review.
Okay. I want to, General, ask you about beneficial reuse, which is, and I heard somebody say something about that earlier, implemented in the 2016 WRDA Section 1122, and again in WRDA 2022. It's been 10 years since the pilot program was first implemented. When do you expect the pilot program to be ready for use?
Congressman, I'll defer to General Graham on the timeline there. But as you say, beneficial use material, dredge material has been, especially in your district where The Barrier Islands were restored, or partially restored post-Hurricane Katrina. And I would just like to recognize the 20th anniversary of that event, which your citizens in your district did a tremendous job persevering through and rebuilding. So congratulations to you and to them. But the beneficial use program is important to preventing future storms.
It absolutely is. And looking at, well, just like its name implies, is that dredge material isn't a waste byproduct. It's actually a commodity we want to maximize. So we'll get back with your office on the exact status of those pilots.
Can you, any idea about what's holding this thing up? Just, everybody's busy.
Again, we'll get back to your staff with that.
I get it. General Graham, there are roughly 18 strategic seaports in the United States that work with DOD for preparedness and general transportation of equipment. The result is numerous acres set aside that ports cannot use. The extensive labor and costs associated with these agreements ensure that the country's military can deploy at a rapid pace if needed. General, do you think ports that have these obligations should see this obligation incorporated into the benefit to cost ratio in some way?
Congressman, I have not come across that ask before, but I'll certainly go back to the staff and take a look at that.
Okay.
Congressman, I would just say, as we calculate the benefits of a project, General Graham and I are stretching to make sure we're being holistic in that calculation to account for monetary and non-monetary benefits. And I know the Port of Gulfport in your district as a major mobilization point for Camp Shelby and the Army National Guard has that designation, and it's something that we'll try to take into account as we look into that project.
Very good. I'm proud to have somebody from Mississippi with some ties to the Army Corps here with us. Thank you, sir. Given up to your career at this point, I'm sure that you are aware of the issues we face down on the Gulf Coast. Can you, Mr. Secretary, can you give me some of the priorities of the Army Corps of Engineers, and how can WRDA be a resource to you?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And I'll just say I don't have much free time, but what free time I do, I generally spend in your district. So
thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot that can, this applies to the entire coast of the Gulf of America, which is such an important part of our country. Mississippi is no exception to that. It's a wonderful place, and I think one of the things that I hear when I've visited your district is the importance of the operations on the Mississippi River that you reference. And I would just commend our New Orleans district during the spring floods this year of the Mississippi River for really holding off on opening the Bonnet Carré Spillway. They had a very precise understanding of when that would be needed, and fortunately in this year's flood it was not needed. And they're going to take that thing right up to the limit to preserve the quality of the water in the Mississippi Sound. And so I would just like to commend the New Orleans district, the commander down there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the Subcommittee on Highways and Transit, Mr. Rouser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, so sorry to hear of your loss. Certainly going to be in our thoughts and prayers. This is to both of you, but probably more predominantly General Graham. You're aware, I'm sure, of the Surf City, North Carolina Coastal Storm Risk Management Project, which has advanced through key milestones with a committed non-federal sponsor. A signed chief's report has been issued, but I understand there are some outstanding technicalities that must be resolved in the chief's report package. How quickly can that be resolved? Can that be accomplished?
Mr. Rouser, it was great to get down there and meet with that team. I got a PhD dissertation on turtles from the team down there, and they are phenomenal non-federal sponsors. That study went through, or that project went through some challenges with, I believe it was North Topsail pulling out, but we're committed, signed that one immediately. The technical challenges that we're working through, I don't expect them to take long, and we'll get it so that it'll be over here, ready to go.
Okay, when you say don't take long, is that a month? Is that 2 months?
So I'll get back with an exact timeline.
Okay, that would be wonderful. So you don't see any problems pertaining to the project thereafter?
No critical flaws have been brought to my attention.
Very good. The North Carolina Ports Authority completed a Section 203 study for the Wilmington Harbor Channel Improvement Project, which was contingently authorized in WARDA 2020. It took nearly 2 years to reach a cost-share agreement for the project. Is there a good reason for that? It just seems like this has dragged on a little too long.
Congressman, I'll defer to General Graham on the specifics of that project, but you raise a really important question here, which is the length of time these projects take, and you also reference cost-share agreements. Because the cost-share agreements with core projects have robust non-federal sponsor commitments, and they often deal with real estate acquisition, which is complicated, especially in coastal communities and riverine communities. Getting an agreement between the federal government and the non-federal sponsor can take a significant amount of time, and we need to work with this committee to address that timeline. Quite often, the non-federal sponsor can be a better acquirer of real estate than the federal government, and so that's one key way in these project partnership agreements that we can deliver better results for the taxpayer.
Yeah. Well, this is deepening of that harbor. Obviously, ports are critically important to the economy, and in North Carolina, we have two that service the economy in exceptional ways. And improvements at those ports, are necessary. And the whole purpose of this of the program was to expedite, not to slow anything down, and to to have good non-federal partners that could take the lead and not only share in the cost but help to move things along. And it just doesn't seem to have worked out that way.
We look forward to working with you to get this right. Agree with you that this is critically important, and we got to get it done.
One other item I want to mention before my time runs out, we have a lot of beautiful beaches in North Carolina, as you know. A number of them are federally authorized, and it's important. That continual renourishment cycle is important in terms of protecting the infrastructure, property, the money that's invested up front. It saves the taxpayer a whole lot of money on the back end, once a storm comes through. You can go to the beaches that aren't well renourished and see the damage that's done, and it's lasting and forever. And then you can go to the ones that have a good renourishment program, and you never know a storm ever came through there, and in large part because so much of that property was protected from the storm and the infrastructure as well. So it saves the taxpayer money on multiple fronts: National Flood Insurance Program, insurance costs, you name it. And so I just want to reiterate, the importance and underscore the importance of beach renourishment. I assume the administration and the Corps specifically is still very much committed to that process.
Congressman, you're correct. In many coastal communities, beach renourishment is the best way to prevent storm surge flooding and other types of flooding, and that's true in your state, and it's true in many others.
Well, thank you very much. With that, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and the gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Bresnahan for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My district is northeastern Pennsylvania, which is no stranger to flooding and natural disasters. Over time, the Wyoming Valley has seen more frequent and more severe flooding and storm events. Yesterday was the 14th anniversary of the 2011 floods, which nearly broke the Wilkes-Barre levee. During the storm, the Susquehanna River hit a record of 42.66 feet against a levee that is designed for 41 feet of water. Families in West Pittston, Plains, West Nanticoke, Shikshini, and Edwardsville either lost their homes or spent thousands rebuilding, including my own grandparents' home that is on the Susquehanna River banks. Couple this with Hurricane Agnes in 1972 and the September 2023 floods, and you can see why flood mitigation efforts are so important to my district. They are literally life-saving measures. My district has the second lowest median income in Pennsylvania, with a median household income of $61,140. And my constituents cannot afford to keep rebuilding year after year, and we don't have the tax base to build our own levees without federal support. Since 1996, the Luzerne County Flood Protection Authority has been working with the Army Corps on mitigation efforts which cover 5 counties and 52 municipalities over a 16-mile span, including Pennsylvania's 9th Congressional District, which is represented by my colleague, Congressman Dan Muser. Unfortunately, these efforts have stalled on the project, and it's been drawn out since 2009. With each passing year, project costs increase, and with each year without mitigation efforts moving forward, my constituents live and properties are at risk. The cancellation of FEMA's BRIC program has cost my district at least $22 million for property buyouts and levee projects. So here's the catch-22. The Army Corps has said that for local authorities to be reimbursed, it can only be for a fully functioning project. The Army Corps conditionally approved the Luzerne County Flood Protection Authority mitigation projects with the stipulation they be design-only phase. So now these projects are tied up in design-only phase since BRIC funding was canceled. So we can't complete a fully functioning project since BRIC funding was canceled. So what my district needs from the Army Corps is to review the requirement change for design-only projects to be advanced so our local flood authority can be reimbursed, and for the Army Corps to move this project off the back burner and to the top of the priority list. So perhaps maybe that was just a long-winded way of saying we need help. And perhaps over the next few weeks, you can commit to coming out to northeastern Pennsylvania to visit and meet with our local flood authority to discuss a plan which was first developed in 1996. Is that something that we can perhaps work together on?
Congressman, I would enjoy visiting your district and happy to do that. And I know we have a native Pennsylvanian here next to me who may have the ability to do that as well.
This is what we're built for, and we'll look with the Baltimore district to see what the challenges are up in Luzerne County. The management working in conjunction with the Potomac River Authority is really, the Susquehanna is really important. So absolutely agree to meet with you and your team.
I think it's a very notable moment when you smell flood mud for the first time. It was in 2011. I was actually helping my grandparents and other neighbors sandbag, and when actually we were flooded from the rear through the sewer systems first before the actual river toppled over its banks. And everybody, 1972 was slightly before my time, but everyone remembers Hurricane Agnes and how close in 2011 we actually came to disaster again. I mean, we were within centimeters with a levee that really, we got very lucky on many different fronts. So I look forward to having you come up to visit Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District to walk the banks of the Susquehanna and hopefully be able to move this ball forward and come up with a finite solution so our friends and family and neighbors can sleep well at night. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Are there any further questions from any members of the subcommittee who have not been recognized? Seeing none, before we conclude, Secretary, I want to extend my condolences. I'm sorry for your loss, and you don't know how much it means for you to show up today. Thank you very much. General Graham, good to see you again. Thanks for your time today. It went a little bit over, but I appreciate y'all coming. And, it's hard for this old Georgia Bulldog to put good, praise, and Alabama in the same sentence. But I want to try to make an effort myself to get down on the 13th of October to Mobile. That pilot project that Congressman Figures was talking about came in under budget and ahead of schedule. And I think that could be a good example going forward of how we could improve efficiency and productivity within the Army Corps projects. So thank you for being here, and with that, this subcommittee stands adjourned.